Welcome to This Dum Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. RollerGator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week?
No, I'd like it to get dumber. How about you, Gator?
Well, thank you for joining us, sir. This was greatly appreciated. Some of my flow is dedicated to
somebody fucked with the clocks.
Someone fucked with the clocks again now. So I don't know if your clocks are unfuckwithable, but you might want to get the ones that automatically get fucked. All right. Well, thank you for joining. My setup sometimes requires you to be around so that I can bounce the things off of you. Otherwise, there's nothing to do.
No, actually, you know what? I think the main issue is that my internet may have imploded while I was looking to see if the thing was going on. Anyway, I'm here now.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, but did anything happen last week?
Couple things here or there. There was a funeral for Jesse Jackson. I don't know if you were aware that Jesse Jackson passed away around a week ago.
In the flesh, you mean?
Well, I mean, he was in the flesh when he passed away. After he passed away, he was no longer specifically in the flesh. He had flesh that was there, but he was no longer inside of it.
I see.
But they held a funeral for him, and the former president Joe Biden was giving a eulogy, and I want to play a little excerpt from that eulogy to show how our former president's tone painted the way.
If I told you all earlier when I was a kid I had a cleft palate or a club foot, none of you would have laughed. But it's okay to laugh at stuttering. I'm not being critical of you, but think about it. It's the one place where people think you're stupid. Oh, really? I'm a hell of a lot smarter than most of you.
Well, that was a good eulogy he gave. I'm a hell of a lot smarter than most of you.
What in the world?
Good eulogy there, Joey. Now,
the former Joe Biden,
the governor of California, Newsom, has sort of been making a name for himself in the recent weeks, getting attention in what people anticipate is going to be a presidential run for 2028. Would you agree that he's likely going to be one of the candidates throwing their hat in the ring for the 2028 presidential race?
Well, you mean he didn't just start a podcast and hire a whole social media team for vanity reasons?
Well, vanity could be one of the explanations. There is an argument for that, but he has been, making podcast rounds.
I suppose it's not mutually exclusive with a presidential run.
Well, he recently appeared with Katie Couric to do an interview with her on her podcast, and I want to see if you would how you would respond to some of the hard hitting questions that she asked him.
Do you have a Zoolander problem?
No, Jesus. Yeah, Zoolander.
Are you just ridiculously good looking, as Vogue said?
Hardly.
No, seriously, what do you do about that?
You don't do anything about it, because if you're going to do something about it, then you're bullshitting people. You know what? I am who I am. And it's fine. You don't have to like me. Or maybe you like a slick person. I don't know. Whatever. It's okay.
But the reason why I brought it up because you talked about being authentic, and I think it sometimes works against you.
Yeah, it's just who I am. It's just who I am.
He's authentically gorgeous, Alex. What is he supposed to do with this sort of cross that he's been made to bear?
I have to confess, initially I thought this was a Sam Harris question. Do you have a Zoolander problem? But eventually I calibrated myself to the nature of the questioning, and he is who he is. Like, I don't know, he's the guy that tells you to lock down and goes to the French Laundry. I don't know what you want. Like, he's just unapologetically himself.
Do you want him to, what do you want him to be? Inauthentic and say, like, I'm not that attractive? Wear normal clothes like a commoner?
No hair gel? What is this?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So that's that's the hard hitting question that she was asking him on her podcast there. That's pretty good. I think we're gonna have a very serious presidential race in a couple of years to look forward to. It'll be super serious and no shenanigans or silly stuff going on.
It'll be hard to make it step down from what?
It is hard to
two candidates able to compose sentences will be a massive leap forward.
That will be a nice little bit of a change. Whether or not the topics that they handle the topics seriously or the topics that we're discussing are serious is left to be seen. There probably will be a new round of smack talking, because now smack talking and giving people names and monikers is popular. There is not a lot of decorum left in the political space. Not that the decorum was ever really serious, but at least it was, going through the motions of pretending to be civilized. I think that's sort of out the window now. I think we've lost that era, and it is now just shit poster central.
It's Trump has won in such a dominating way that we're just living in that timeline now.
Now, this is a very small update, Alex, but just because I do keep track of these things, I wanted to let you know there's a small Tom Alexandrovich update for you. And Tom Alexandrovich
thank you.
is a very it might be considered a minor case, but it got people's attention because it was fitting a particular theme at the time that people heard about it. And there was a Nevada sting operation between the Nevada police and in coordination with the FBI, where they were sort of doing a to catch the predator sting operation. And a man named Tom Alexandrovich, who is high up in the Israeli government's IT department / hacker department, let's say, their cybersecurity department is probably the better.
Sorry. He's the cybersecurity chief, I think.
Well, he's high up
exactly
there.
IT nerd.
He's not the cousin who you hired to wire the Cat 5 cable over the weekend. But he got himself caught up in this sting operation for allegedly attempting to take a 15-year-old girl away from her house to have sex with her. And that is sort of the crime that he is being accused of. And we were following the case a little bit back and forth. And the last update that we had, Alex, was that the trial was supposed to start tomorrow. But I checked the docket, and in the interim, there was an agreement to postpone the trial for 2 months. And now the new trial start date is May 18th. So that's a small update. I just wanted to let you know.
Do we know why?
I mean, there was a readiness meeting, and I guess both sides agreed that a few extra weeks to get ready for the trial would be in their benefit.
Is he expected to show up for the trial, or is he going to attend remotely?
That's not a specific piece of information that I have at this moment.
Okay,
but
fascinating.
I did look at the docket to get that update.
I'd think that, imagine with all the hacking going on right now with the war, he might have been required.
It's possible that part of it was his ability to perform his duties was getting in the way, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that is involved. But we have some other stupid news for the week here. This is from KTLA. Man dies after allegedly cutting off his own penis in downtown Los Angeles. A man died after he allegedly cut off his own penis in downtown LA early Saturday morning. Information surrounding the incident was scarce at first. A Los Angeles Police Department spokesperson confirmed to KTLA that officers responded to the intersection of Figueroa Street and Pico Boulevard across from the LA Convention Center around 3:40 a.m. on reports a man was cutting himself. A white tent was seen at the scene, indicating a fatality had occurred, and the LAPD spokesperson verified that a death investigation is underway, but did not provide any details on the incident. According to the photographer, with news stringer service On Scene TV, the man died after he, quote, cut his penis off and bled to death, but police officials did not elaborate on which part of the body the man suffered injuries to. Graphic footage taken by the photographer, who alleged the man was mutilating himself, showed his body lying on the ground with what appeared to be a large wound in his groin area. There was blood next to the clothing the man had been wearing, which was located a short distance away from where he was found. No information on the man's identity was known right away. Now, Alex, I would have to just say I don't like to give people personal advice because, it's not usually my place to say what to do and what not to do when you're an adult human being. However, in this circumstance, I would have to recommend you do not try to do this. And that this is no matter what your desires are, whatever your intent is, that this is just an avenue that you do not go down.
I mean, if you do want to be mentioned on this program, however, in our lacking ways, maybe this is,
this will get you probably a mention on the program.
That's right. That's the famous double Darwin award. I mean, what else?
That's true, that there is a double-edged sword there, I guess, as far as incentive structures go. Now, this next little piece, Alex, I don't know if perhaps you might try to procure tickets for this, but a Luigi Mangione musical immortalizing accused CEO killer to premiere on the NYC stage. A provocative new musical comedy about the alleged United Healthcare CEO gunman Luigi Mangione is headed to New York City, the real-life setting of the shocking killing, this summer. Following a brief run in San Francisco last June, Luigi the Musical will go east to the Green Room 42 in Midtown on June 15th, a cabaret venue that's a mere 20-minute subway ride from where Mangione is accused of gunning down insurance exec Brian Thompson outside of a Hilton hotel in December 2024. If a jokey lark centered around the cold-blooded murder of a husband and dad of two during the ongoing trial feels too soon, the NY Performance's timing has got nothing on the original. Just 6 months after the slaying and ensuing 5-day manhunt gripped America, an actor named Johnny Stein was already playing 27-year-old Mangione on stage, tap dancing and belting away at a tiny theater in North Carolina. Although smiley, meme-friendly Mangione gets top billing, and according to audience members' boisterous cheers, he's not the only notorious bold-facer in the musical. Luigi imagines, in song, Mangione, crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, and disgraced hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs all sharing the same prison cell at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. The three men really were all behind bars there at once. The troublesome trio sings songs to justify their acts like cats in the clink. Becoming a Gen Z Jean Valjean, the title character croons, "Bringing down a tiny part of our broken healthcare system brings me enough happiness to share." La 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 Luigi is also said to perform an upbeat ditty about ordering hash browns at McDonald's, the fast food restaurant where he was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Other tunes include, quote, "The Cheapest Room in Brooklyn" and Lockup, about Lockup, and Bay Area Baby, sung by Bankman-Fried. A critic for the San Francisco Chronicle called Luigi terrible, while a writer for SFGate said, "Shot me through the heart." Lisa Bonos, a former Washington Post reporter who covered the musical's Frisco Frenzy, called the unusual event Chicago for the TikTok era. Luigi deals with serious topics, crime, tragedy, America's growing distrust of institutions, in a scrappy, satirical way that had North Carolina audiences laughing out loud while also squirming in discomfort, she told the Post. And songwriter Ariel Johnson and director Nova Bradford claim on their musical's website that Luigi doesn't glorify violence, but rather interrogates it. We're not valorizing any of these characters, and we're also not trivializing any of their actions or alleged actions, Bradford told the Chronicles. Even so, Mangione refers to himself as a martyr in Luigi, and according to SFGate, the character expresses a dream of changing the world by offing any CEO he decides does harm. Combs and Bankman-Fried look on in horror, the writer added. Representatives for the musical said the first Big Apple performance will be a staged reading, not a full production. After Luigi, a 4-actor show created on Shoestring, was announced in 2025 and made the headlines, its 5-performance run at the 40-seat theater quickly sold out and a 6th performance was added. It then made a leap to a 500-seat independent in San Francisco for more nights and jetted all the way to Edinburgh Fringe Festival. A British critic of the website Binge Fringe was appalled across the pond. Quote, "My friends were crying with laughter at everything except the jokes," he said. Mangione faces life in prison at his upcoming murder trial in the state court set for June if convicted of fatally shooting Thompson in a Target hit in Midtown Sidewalk. The June 15th musical about him is one night only. So, Alex, I don't know if you're going to be grabbing tickets to attend that as part of our scout and perhaps report back with your findings.
Right, yes. I was wondering if you could get, at least one of the songs to have a 3D printer motors on the background as the musical accompaniment.
Have you ever heard the computer robotics version of Bohemian Rhapsody?
I have. That is exactly where I was going. Yes.
Okay. Well, I agree that if they are not doing that, that is a missed opportunity.
The huge missed opportunity. Yes, exactly. After they take away our fucking printers because of this asshole. The last, surely at least we get that. Anyway,
well, no, I mean, while that asshole
allegedly because of this asshole.
Alleged asshole has done damage to the 3D printer sort of scene by at least somewhat inspiring legislation to try to wiggle into prohibiting 3D printers from printing certain shapes. Another person who has sort of dabbled in the hackery with machinery has possibly seen the reverse, which is the engineer receives $30,000 for exposing a vulnerability affecting 7,000 robot vacuum cleaners. Tinkerer just wanted to drive his robot vacuum with a PS5 controller. Now, Alex, both you and I saw this story last week, and we brought it on to the show to talk about it. But it turns out that the company has now paid him sort of a bounty for finding the flaw. DJI will pay $30,000 to a man who discovered a critical vulnerability in the company's cloud backend that, among other things, granted him access to a fleet of some 7,000 robot vacuum cleaners and gave him a glimpse into other people's homes, reports The Verge. The company reportedly sent Sami Adzatfal, a software engineer who wanted to drive his DJI Romo robot vacuum with a PS5 controller, an email notifying him of the reward, but did not elaborate on the reasons behind it. DJI insists it had already started fixing several weaknesses in its backend systems before Adzatfal demonstrated the scale of access he had uncovered, yet questions remain about the reward and patching. According to an email he shared with The Verge, DJI agreed to pay him $30,000 for one of its discoveries, although the company did not clarify which specific discovery is eligible for the reward. DJI confirmed that it had compensated an unnamed researcher, according to The Verge. Yet, the company's past dispute with researcher Kevin Finsterer in 2017 makes it unclear whether Adzatfal would be rewarded at all and how quickly the DJI backend holes will be patched. It all started earlier this year when Sami Adzatfal wanted to control his robotic Hoover with something more convenient than a smartphone screen. To control his DJI Romo using his PS5 gamepad, Adzatfal had to develop a custom controller app that used his security token to verify his vacuum cleaner that he was the owner of the device. To extract the token, he needed to work with DJI's cloud servers to reverse engineer the authorization process, which he successfully did using an assistance of an AI coding tool. As it turned out, instead of verifying a single robot, DJI's backend granted broad access rights to some 7,000 robot vacuum cleaners located in 24 countries, along with their sensor data stored in the cloud. DJI Romo is an advanced robot vacuum cleaner that is not only equipped with the typical set of sensors found in any automatic Hoover, but with a camera and a microphone. As a result of the authorization flaw, Adzatfal gained access to 7,000 live camera feeds with the audio and could even compile 2D floor plans of homes operated by other DJI Romos, as the DJI backend was also generous enough. It also provided the software expert with the IP address of the homes, enabling him to guess their geographical locations. Adzatfal insists that he did not hack anything, he simply encountered a flawed backend service that failed to properly limit device access. To his credit, Sami Adzatfal chose to disclose the information rather than abuse it. Adzatfal alerted The Verge, which contacted DJI, which fixed the problem mid-February. So, there you go, Alex. He might be handsomely rewarded for his finding as a white hat hacker in this case.
Great.
Now, have you ever had the opportunity to invite sort of the open white hat hacker bounties for whenever you worked and ran Balena?
No. Well, sorry, to invite as in to have to pay others for their reports.
Yes.
Yeah, we did run a little program. And it's fascinating because what you find out is that the first wave of reports you get is from script kiddies in Pakistan. No offense to script kiddies or to Pakistan, this is how we start. Who would run, standard exploit suites, or I don't know how generative they've gotten these days, but you sort of recombine a bunch of things and they would send us the reports in hopes of getting, something. I don't think they ever found anything that was important, but a lot of it was kind of stylistic, whatever, so we did pay. But unfortunately, what that meant is that at the end of it, the only thing that those suites would report were things that we actually disagreed were problems. So we kept getting the same, you have this problem. It's like, no, this is not a problem. This is why it's not a problem. Whatever. But sorry, where I was, I don't know where I was going with this.
Well,
yeah. It's
it is difficult.
There's a lot of things that sound incredibly exciting and interesting. Oh my God, I bet you they hacked SHA 256 and found some unique edge case. And it's like, nah, it's mostly people trying to get a freebie. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, have you been aware over time that the company Nintendo has been notorious for suing hobbyists and homebrew game makers for modifying consoles or trying to circumvent security systems and make backups of Nintendo games or make emulators that play Nintendo games, and that Nintendo has been very lawsuit happy in protecting their intellectual property and their landscape. Are you familiar with that sort of trend with Nintendo?
I'm not going to lie. This sounds like a brand violation in some way.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not the vibe you expect from Nintendo. Like Nintendo, the Game Boy people. Come on. Like Tetris people,
They actually even sued a video game company that's game was too close in design to Pokemon. So the history of Nintendo being litigious is actually fairly thick and extensive. They're notorious. But the people who tend to complain about Nintendo lawsuits are actually really happy at Nintendo's next target for lawsuit. Nintendo sues U.S. government over Trump's unlawful tariffs that led to last-minute Switch 2 pre-order delay, demands refund with interest. Nintendo has sued the U.S. government over unlawful tariffs, demanding a refund with interest. Aftermath was first to report on Nintendo's lawsuit, which was filed in the United States Court of International Trade today. Nintendo is focused on refunds of tariffs that were struck down last month by the Supreme Court, which has said President Donald Trump's unprecedented use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act was illegal. Following the Supreme Court decision, Trump introduced a new 10% global tariff rate. In April, early last year, Trump held up a chart while speaking during a Make America Wealthy Again trade announcement event in the Rose Garden at the White House and declared Liberation Day. The announcement confirmed additional tariffs targeting goods imported to the U.S. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency said it collected around $166 billion in duties and deposits under the emergency tariffs imposed by Trump. According to Reuters, the CBP said the tariff refund system would be ready in 45 days. Trump's tariffs upended Nintendo Switch 2's pre-order plans. Following the Liberation Day announcement, Nintendo took the unprecedented decision to delay Switch 2 pre-orders in the U.S., blaming the impact of Trump's tariffs and evolving market conditions. Nintendo issued IGN the following statement at the time. Pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in the US will not start April 9th, 2025 in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch date of June 5th, 2025 is unchanged. Nintendo announced the Switch 2 at $449.99 with a Mario Kart World bundle priced at $49.99.99. Mario Kart World was priced at $79.99. The company later hiked the price of its accessories, including the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller, Joy-Con 2 pair, and Joy-Con 2 charging grip, although it kept the price of the console the same. At the time Nintendo made its pre-order delay announcement, U.S. markets had tumbled after China hit back against Trump's tariffs. China, which then faced a 54% import tax, retaliated with the announcement of an additional 34% tax on U.S. goods. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on the cost of importing certain goods, and while it's possible for companies in the supply chain to simply eat the costs, more often than not, these taxes are passed on to consumers. Last year, Nintendo leaned on its Switch 2 units imported from Vietnam rather than China in order to maintain the $449.99 price of the console. Nintendo issued IGN the following statement: "We can confirm that we filed a request. We have nothing else to share on the topic." So Nintendo's aiming its massive legal army at the U.S. government in order to get its taxes paid back with interest. So that has made...
I assume they're the first of many, right? Like, this must be a standard move by many large companies that have had similar things happen, or no?
No, this is not the first. It is just the newest entry. It is the first time that Nintendo has sued the U.S. government, I believe, though. There were, because of the Supreme Court case, there were already some companies who were in the pipeline with lawsuits, and are I guess fighting to get their tariff money back. Whether or not they filed new lawsuits after the Supreme Court hearing, I'm not sure. But yeah, so there you go.
Very good, very good. The things you learn.
Alex, we had a story last week about was it 21 bars of gold that were donated to a municipality in Japan.
Japanese what is it, a water pipe system?
Yes, and we had speculated a little bit, along with a lot of people on the internet, that this suspicious pile of gold, totaling something along the lines of $3 million, was possibly related to organized crime in the Yakuza. It's not something that we would personally know, but that's the speculation most have, because this is a very odd form of donating money, and the people most likely to have large amounts of
untraced valuables,
untraced goods like that is, organized crime, and the Yakuza being the most famous organized crime syndicate in Japan. Well, here is not a related story to the gold bars, but oddly a related story to the Yakuza. New York Times: Yakuza leader sentenced to 20 years for trafficking nuclear material. A man described by federal prosecutors as a leader in Japan's Yakuza organized crime syndicate was sentenced on Wednesday to 20 years in prison for trafficking uranium and plutonium from Myanmar in a plot meant to supply Iran's nuclear weapons program. The man, Takeshi Abisawa, was sentenced by Judge Colleen McMahon in the Southern District of New York after he pleaded guilty to 6 charges, including conspiracy to commit international trafficking of nuclear material, according to court records. Prosecutors said Mr. Abisawa and his associates had tried to sell weapons-grade materials and illegal narcotics while also trying to buy surface-to-air missiles and other arms for ethnic insurgent group in Myanmar, the country formerly known as Burma. Quote, today's sentence should send a clear message. Threatening the United States by trafficking nuclear materials, narcotics, and military-grade weapons will trigger an uncompromising response, Terrence Cole, administrator of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, said in a statement. Evan Lipton, his court-appointed lawyer, in an emailed statement, rebutted prosecutors' claims that Mr. Ebisawa was a Japanese crime boss. Rather, at the time of the plot was unfolding, his client was a, quote, broke 55-year-old guy living in cheap hotels in Bangkok who got a, quote, seat at the table with a charismatic undercover agent who dangled big deals, he said. In sentencing him to 20 years, Judge McMahon didn't reject this narrative, but made it clear that the crime of dealing in nuclear materials without authorization was of such unique character that it demanded more than the mandatory minimum we asked for, but less than the 30 years sought by the government, Mr. Lipton added. Mr. Ebisawa, 61, told an undercover Drug Enforcement Administration agent in early 2020 that he had access to a large quantity of nuclear materials that he wished to sell, according to a federal indictment. He also asked whether Iran might be interested. Prosecutors said he had sent a confidential source a series of photos of dark, rocky materials beside a Geiger counter, which is used to measure radiation, according to court records. Later that year, he sent an undercover agent similar images, along with what he said were lab tests showing uranium and thorium. When Mr. Abisawa asked for help selling the material, the agent pretended to agree, saying that the buyer was an Iranian general. Yet, it was another confidential source, Mr. Ebisawa, proposed to supply the fake Iranian general with plutonium that would be even better and more powerful than uranium for Iran's use. As the plot unfolded, Mr. Abisawa sent the agent a list of weapons he wanted in exchange, including surface-to-air missiles and AK-47 rifles, according to court documents. He said a man who was the leader of an ethnic insurgent group in Myanmar was interested in buying the weapons. In May 2021, while negotiating the deal, Mr. Abisawa asked again whether the Iranian general still wanted nuclear material, according to court documents. The conversations over the next few months led to a meeting between two brokers and the agent in Thailand in February 2022. During the meeting, 2 vials of powdery yellow material were produced before being put into storage. The authorities conducted a search of the office in Bangkok in May 2020. A U.S. nuclear forensic laboratory determined it contained detectable quantities of uranium, thorium, and weapons-grade plutonium, according to court documents. Now, Alex, I find myself caught up in many interesting scenarios as my life goes on. And one of those little interesting scenarios is that I've actually talked to this Evan Lipton, this guy's attorney, before. Not about this case. I didn't know this case existed until just recently. But I've actually spoken to Evan Lipton before. And so as an interesting sort of aside, I find myself being occasionally connected in some small way to things that wind up in the news like this. However, I have never been approached by anyone to attempt to sell any arms to any other countries. I don't know if you've ever found yourself in that position. And I'm curious how exactly one finds themselves in that position, even if it is all a setup and you are being sort of duped into this activity, like it's an entrapment scenario. I still don't know how you find yourself.
It's just another testament to the Japanese, devotion to quality and excellence in all their pursuits. I mean, why do petty crime when you could exchange nuclear material for surface-to-air missiles? I mean,
now surface-to-air missiles,
you're helping the freedom fighters in Myanmar. So, I mean,
I guess
this guy's practically a saint.
He's a mensch, right? He's doing a doing a good deed then.
He's solid to the.
Yes, I find certain things like that interesting. Like, like when you hear the line that, according to his attorney, Evan Lipton, that when the plot was unfolding, he was a broke 55-year-old guy living in cheap hotels in Bangkok. You can sort of place in your head, okay, well, if this guy's broke, he might be easily duped and entrapped into agreeing to such a thing, right? If he has no money and no hope, someone comes along with a deal, even if the deal is, untoward and that person's really a federal agent of some kind trying to trick him and entrap him into agreeing to stuff he would never do otherwise or wasn't even in the position to do before. Even if that's the case, I still cannot imagine the sequence of events that leads you to that sort of discussion.
Okay, jokes aside, entrapment, it does not happen because of some special feature of yourself other than perhaps gullibility, right? It happens because somebody's trying to fill a quota and is, it's like winning the lottery. You've never won the lottery, but you don't. I guess it also requires gullibility to qualify for one. But, it happens to people and in certain ethical systems through no fault per se of their own. They just, meet the wrong guy, the wrong bar at the wrong day in the wrong city. And the rest is an exchange of nuclear materials.
So what do you do? Oh, I trade nuclear fissile material and sometimes it falls off the truck, it's don't know if you're ever in the dealings with nuclear material.
Can you ask your friend if his client send any gold bars to that Japanese municipality then?
No, he's not my friend. I've just spoken to him once before on an unrelated matter. I was not a party to the case. I had knowledge of something involving a case that he was an attorney.
Okay, so but that does not answer my question though.
Well, okay. Rephrase the question since he's not my friend.
Evan.
Yes.
By any chance, did your client send any gold bars to any municipality in Japan?
I can promise you. I can promise you that the client that I was being interacted with did not send them gold bars. I don't know about I do not know about this this gentleman here.
Yep.
But now I'd like to go review the case to find out where the allegations and the evidence came for accusing him of being Yakuza. The accuser, so to speak. That would be fascinating. I mean, is it just because he's Japanese? Oh, it's gotta be Yakuza.
Look, one of these days we have to dig into that whole Tenet situation. I don't know if you remember it. Where like Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, and a bunch of others were implicated for being part of what's her face? This kind of like B-rate conservative commentator woman.
Which one?
Young woman.
Which one?
I don't know.
Which one? You do not narrow it down by saying B-rate. Lauren Chen. Lauren Chen.
That's it.
Lauren Chen. There you go.
So Lauren Chen and I think her husband had started this thing called Tenet Media with funding from somewhere. This will become relevant. And I mean, for all I can tell, it was a thing that did not really do very well. Nobody really watched it. All these big names were just paid to produce exclusive content for that exclusive platform that exclusively nobody watched, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But somehow, all that became part of a thing where the feds, I think, just like wrapped the whole operation up as part of RT's Russia Today, which is like a Russian news source, news medium that had been banned at the time, I think, in the US. It's propaganda, but not like more propaganda than CNN or anything. So their concept was that like this Tenet was their attempt to recreate that same influence vector by hiring these American conservative, I don't know, influencers. I don't know what to call them. People.
Yeah. Commentators.
I don't know what to call Tim Pool. I'm sorry. Like, he's not a journalist. He's not like
political masturbators.
Hipsters. That's right. Yes, that's right. But the whole the plot of the whole thing thickened when I think at the end they dropped all charges on everybody American. So apparently nobody knew what this was or why it was. And as far as I can remember, when I looked at the evidence, all they had was like one of the investors that they somehow linked to RT, which we don't even know if these people existed or whatever, had been on their Slack or whatever they had and said like, oh, look at this, and posted some story about Russia or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But they had no like, surely if this was what was alleged, you would have them saying, all right, we need to cover this, we need to go by this angle, and you need to make sure you play President Putin.
As far as you know, there was no editorial direction given by these financiers, as far as you know. I mean,
there was the best they could present was like extremely subtle and like roundabout. And if you let every American off the hook here, you're basically saying they were part of an influence operation that they didn't know was an influence operation and they weren't influencing anybody. So it was just bizarre. The whole thing was so bizarre that it just made me wonder, like what the hell is going on with these operations? Because you're just wondering, was this another sort of entrapment of some kind, some like convoluted scheme? And especially around the time it happened, it was before the last election. So was there some electoral?
Well, if you go reverse engineer it from, let's say, the payoff that was had from the FBI announcing this whole thing, it did sort of taint the image of every single person who was named in it as being somewhat of a stooge or a grifter
Russian
paid
stooge,
by. So even if there was less on the line of actual criminality or even editorial influence, where it was just that they happened to be doing news content that was in line with parts of Russian interests narratively. The effect of that announcement made it seem like they were just producing content from, Putin's direction, which I think stuck in a lot of people's minds successfully, whether or not there's truth to that. So even if there was no criminal entrapment, I think that if you wanted to say what the payoff could have been, that could have been the only intent of it, was that these collection of people had too much of a, let's say, audience that they wanted to sort of taint.
Yep.
Now,
who the hell knows? Anyway.
Speaking of fascinating sort of tangled stories, Alex, this has been on the cutting room floor for several weeks, and I really wanted to get it in here before it became way too stale. But this is going to be a story that I bet very, very few people have heard of, and they came somewhat to a conclusion about 2 weeks ago. And I want to bring everyone to the attention of this story because it is fairly fascinating. Alex, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Mamdani coming into office and going to be sort of putting price controls on rents in excess of what currently exists with the rents, the rent freezing policies that they have. And we discussed effects of rent freezing and things like that, broadly speaking. Do you remember that conversation roughly?
I do, but I don't think we made the rent is too damn high joke when we did it.
We did
which
not
I feel
make
was
rents
an oversight.
Too damn high joke. We do miss a lot of opportunities like that, and I'll take blame for that. Sort of as the goofiest one.
That guy was running for mayor of New York, if I'm not mistaken, right? The original rent is dumb high.
I don't recall where he was running. I don't recall.
Okay.
He could have been running for New York something.
Maybe he even won under the names of
But I'm gonna take us through a couple news stories that set this whole story here that is fascinating and involves rent control and loopholes involving rent control. This is the story of Mickey Barretto and the New Yorker Hotel. And the first news story comes from the New York Post from 2019 in June. The New Yorker Hotel is locked in a court battle with a man it says is a shameless freeloader who scored a year rent-free under an obscure legal loophole and then filed a phony deed to commandeer the entire Midtown building. Now the real owners of the 43-story structure, topped with the iconic New Yorker sign, are scrambling to get Mickey Barretto's alleged fraud reversed. Barretto, 44, spent one night in the historic Art Deco Hotel in June 2018. The next day, he asked for a 6-month lease under an obscure section of the rent stabilization laws, according to court papers filed in Manhattan Supreme Court. The hotel declined, locking Barretto out, but he ran to housing court, where a month later, Judge Jack Stoller ordered the hotel to let Barretto back in. But that wasn't enough for Barretto, who somehow convinced clerks at the City Department of Finance that the paperwork gave him not just a room, but ownership of the whole building. Barretto's deed, which he filed May 28th, lists the building as a religious structure and claims his purchase was by court order at a whopping price of $189,336,000. He now purports to run Mickey Barretto missions out of 481 8th Avenue. He has demanded rent from 2 restaurant tenants, called hotel operator Wyndham, trying to take over hotel operations, and attempted to get the building's bank accounts transferred to him, attempted to summon the FDNY, demanding an evacuation because of a non-existent gas leak, Manhattan Supreme Court papers show. He cheekily requested a $15 million payment from the building's true owners, noting, "I will gladly take cash or check." Then he posted on a since-removed LinkedIn page, "I own the building where the New Yorker Hotel is located in Manhattan. All mine. Please apply here for your Section 8 apartment in Manhattan." The Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity has owned the New Yorker Hotel since 1976. The association fears Barretto could take out a lien or mortgage on the building or try to sell it to an innocent third party. The city finance department, which says only a court can void a bad deed, gets 40 new deed fraud complaints each month. A Manhattan Supreme Court judge called Barretto's ownership bid bizarre and said it was abundantly clear Barretto was not the owner, but only ordered Barretto to remove public references to himself as the owner. Barretto defended his actions to the Post, quote, "I never committed any fraud," he insisted. Now, the unification of world Christianity Church is actually a sort of popular or famous cult that knowingly the Moonies, which was started by Kim Jong-moon back in like the 60s or something like that, as a anti-North Korean, current North Korean state sort of Christian cult. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Moonies before, Alex.
Oh boy, have I heard of the Moonies. Yes, okay. I have, and I've looked into them quite a bit. There's also the this is what I was scrambling to find quickly. There's a splitter group from yes, the Global Peace Foundation. Rod of Iron Ministries. That's right. Original known as World Peace and Unification Sanctuary Church, is a schismatic offshoot of the Unification Church, established by Hyung Jin Sean Moon and some other moon. Sorry, I'm not gonna keep butchering Korean names.
How many moons does this planet have?
Yes, that's right. Both of them are sons of Sun Myung Moon. You cannot be called Sun Moon, okay? There's some limit here.
Some young moon.
Their father was the founder of the Unification Church and his leader until his death in 2012. So basically, the mother of these two guys took over the group when their father died. Their father had said one of them was his heir, but the mother took over and kicked him out. And then he made his own thing, which is the Rod of Iron Ministries, which if you look into it, it is fucking insane. I mean, these guys go around with AK-47 imagery, and the Rod of Iron is... Okay, just to be clear, they're not subtle, but, you can be less subtle than that even.
I always have like sketch notes of ideas for stories we should delve into. One day, hopefully, there is a lack of some breathing room and a lack of chaos in the news. And the moons are one of the sort of stories. So I guess there's additional offshoot information.
Gator, please do me a favor. Go in your favorite search engine and put in Rod of Iron Ministries and tell me what comes up in the image tab.
Rod of Iron Ministries. Oh yeah, they're all packing. They're strapped everywhere. It's just that's pure that's pure AK-47, all gold too. Gold colored. So
anyway,
okay, yeah.
Where were we?
Well, just to let you know that there's so much going on in this story that we go up to 2023. So this guy has declared himself the owner of the hotel. He has gotten someone to issue him a deed fraudulently through a series of loopholes that he exploited. And this is from the Commercial Observer in 2023. Deed to New Yorker hotel again transferred to alleged fraudster. The hijinks of yesteryear may be repeating themselves at the New Yorker Hotel at 481 8th Avenue. 4 years after Mickey Barretto of Mickey Barretto Missions reportedly tried to turn a one-night stay at the historic hotel into a rental lease, documents filed in public records show that the historic hotel's deed was transferred for $400 million. The buyer's name? Mickey Barretto Missions. The seller? Mickey Barretto Missions, his nonprofit organization that never owned the building. An unusual filing, even without the history. The document is dated September 15th, 2021, but wasn't signed by Barretto until September 1st and made public by the New York City's Department of Finance until Wednesday morning, according to property records. Neither Mickey Barretto Missions nor Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, which operates the building and had Barretto evicted in 2019, responded to requests for comment. In July, the $106 million loan on the building from M&T Bank hit the debt market, with the credit line maturing sometime in October at a default rate of 15%. 15%, Commercial Observer reported at the time. It sold to Yellowstone Real Estate Investments in September. Barretto's filing attempts to take advantage of a rule regarding rent-stabilized hotels, which allows some guests to become tenants if they request a lease. Barretto instead tried to take the entire cake when the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity, the hotel's owner, denied him a lease agreement and filed a deed transfer for the hotel. What ensued was a court battle after New York City Civil Court Judge Jack Stoller ordered the hotel let borrow back into the building, and the DOF processed paperwork that acknowledged his ownership of the entire building. The 2019 deed transfer was for $189 million and classified the hotel as a religious structure. Not only did Barretto request $14 million from the owners of the building, but he tried to take over operations from the Wyndham, have bank accounts tied to the hotel transferred to his name, and began shaking down restaurant tenants for rent, the New York Post reported at the time. In the end, a New York State Supreme Court judge sided with the plaintiffs and acknowledged the deed was fraudulent. The owners of the hotel could not be reached for comment, and the DOF did not respond to an inquiry. So we come up to now the sort of the update to this story that occurred 2 weeks ago, which was man who lived rent-free in New Yorker hotel, then claimed to own it, pleads guilty to fraud charge. A man who attempted to claim ownership of the New Yorker hotel has pleaded guilty to fraud, ending a lengthy legal saga involving an obscure tenant law that allowed the man to live rent-free for years in the storied Manhattan hotel. Mickey Barretto entered the plea on Wednesday, admitting that he had forged property records in an effort to take ownership over the hotel. That effort was, at least on paper, partially successful. In Barretto's telling, he and his boyfriend paid $200 in 2018 to rent one of the more than 1,000 rooms in the towering, off-photographed Art Deco hotel. Barretto then requested a lease, claiming his one-night stay entitled him to protections under a city housing law that applies to single-room occupants of the building constructed before 1969. When the hotel rebuffed him, he took his case to housing court. After the hotel failed to send a lawyer to a key hearing, Barretto was awarded possession of the room. But Manhattan prosecutors said Barretto then went a step further, defrauding the state by uploading a fake deed to a city website that purported to transfer ownership of the entire building to himself. The property is currently owned by the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of the World Christianity, which was founded in South Korea by self-proclaimed Messiah, the late Reverend Sung Myung Moon. The church did not respond to an emailed inquiry. Barretto then attempted to collect rent from a hotel tenant and demanded the hotel's bank transfer the accounts to him, according to prosecutors. He was eventually evicted from the premises in 2024, so from 2018 to 2024, that guy lived there, and charged with multiple counts of felony fraud. He was later found unfit to stand trial and ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment. As part of the plea, Barretto was sentenced to a 6-month prison sentence that he has already served, along with 5 years of probation, according to a spokesperson for the Manhattan District Attorney. Brian Hutchinson, a attorney for Barretto, didn't immediately respond to a phone message seeking comments. Barretto previously told the AP that the judge who granted him possession of his room indirectly gave him the entire building because it had never been subdivided. Quote, "I never intended to commit any fraud. I don't believe I ever committed any fraud," Barretto said at the time, "and I never made a penny out of this." So that was the update to the story that I needed to bring in, because imagine being a hostile tenant in the sense that you believe that you own the entire building that they can't kick you out of.
It really brings new meaning to the whole the inmates have taken over the asylum aphorism.
So
that's it. That's all I have to contribute.
I don't expect laws that Mobdani tries to get passed, or ordinances and rent freezes, to have the same outcomes. I don't expect everyone to be able to take over even fraudulently the buildings that they're occupying, but I do expect a little bit of chaos coming from that, like the difficulty of eviction and people failing to pay even the rent that is frozen being a problem. That the part of the rent freezes will come with increased difficulty in evictions. That's just sort of par for the course. Now, at some point, Alex, I know that Eva has published her Elon Musk and Epstein paper. I don't know if you want to simply direct people to it to give them a highlight of what's in it, or if we want to go into some of the details of it. Have
you read it?
I've not yet had a chance to read it, unfortunately. And
okay, so basically, Eva, who's my wife, but we've collaborated on pieces in the past on my Substack. She started digging into the Epstein files, and I think she felt like it probably didn't fit the sort of vibe of the previous Substack, so she made a new one. May I say? I think it's a pretty good name.
Rewind.news is the current URL.
Pretty good domain, if I may say so myself. So she went in, and I think it's worth reading. I learned a lot while sort of I was there. I was seeing drafts. I may have sent her a couple of notes here and there, and she's got a lot more to write as follow-ups to this. But this is kind of the foundation, and I think it's very interesting and important to read because you don't sort of get this by looking at one email, right, here or there, but she actually went in and dug up all the emails that were between Musk and Epstein and made a timeline, which all of a sudden, once you go a little macro, you start to see, the motion, not necessarily the, one odd phrasing here or there, but you see, the directionality of the whole thing, where I think she counted more or less 20 separate invitations by Epstein to Musk. And then the 2 times that Musk said, yeah, sure, I'll come to the island, Epstein canceled both times. My sense is that it was because Elon insisted on coming with his future and ex-wife at the time. I know this is confusing, but this is somebody that he was with.
That wouldn't have been Grimes, correct? That would have been a different...
No, it's Tallulah Riley. If you've seen Westworld, you've seen her.
Mm.
Anyway, long story short, both times, once it became clear that his significant other, I suppose, was going to be along, Epstein found some excuse to cancel the visit. Who knows what? Who knows what's going on there? But I don't know. I just got a lot about the method that Epstein is following, both from the sort of visible portion from the Elon Epstein emails, and the underground portion where Epstein is sort of directing, various girls, like, get ready, Elon's going to be there, or whatever, to sort of, I don't know, like honey trap him. I don't know what the fuck he was trying to do. Whatever he was trying to do didn't work, but he did manage to trap his brother, Kimball. Somebody who knew him told me he was the Fredo of the family. So I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if you get my joke. But he's
well. I mean, Fredo is the classic character from Godfather, who is the the dumber brother,
less cognitively impressive of the
yes. Yes.
Anyway, point being, his brother got roped into a relationship with a girl that was clearly Epstein's I don't know what to call her, like employee, assistant, plant, something, for 7 months. But Elon it just didn't work out. But again, there's one portion of it that's interesting if you're like wondering. Would you like me to
read your thread on it, or
Sure. If you want to, I want you to go as deep as you want to go. I don't want to like. Well, I don't want to read. I don't want to read her.
I don't want to read her piece because I would like people to go to it to read it. But if the thread that she posted before linking to the piece gives sort of the sale of reading the piece, I think that would be.
Feel free to sort of go through it as you want. I don't think she minds us. Sort of. I think the most interesting thing, if people want to follow that further, because there is more to come. For example, I picked up some records of Epstein shorting Tesla.
Yes, we discussed that a little bit last time. Yes.
Right. Anyway,
Gates shorting on his request, or
no.
Let's say.
Yeah, what I picked up is Epstein shorting.
Yeah, right.
It's in the files. Weirdly enough. Anyway, not huge amounts, but it's another piece of the puzzle. Anyway, feel free to go as far as you want. I don't think you mind.
The tweet thread from Ava says, "Okay, what's the deal with Musk and Epstein? I dug out every Musk email in the Epstein files just for my own curiosity at first, but it's all so wild I had to write it up. The result? How Epstein tried and failed to trap Musk. I did find some errors in Musk's accounts. He accepted a couple invites to Epstein's island. They didn't pan out. They just didn't pan out. And Epstein did visit him at SpaceX. But the real revelation was seeing the full-blown operation Epstein ran to court and trap Musk. What the files show is the lengths to which Epstein went to pursue and ensnare Musk with the methods he used. Musk slipped through, his brother Kimball didn't, and that story is the saddest part of this saga. As far as I can tell, Epstein's playbook was twofold. On the surface, there was the charm offensive, repeatedly checking in and trying to hook up. From September 2012 to December 2014, he tried to meet approximately 20 times, including with invites to New York, the Caribbean, his ranch, etc. At first, he used Kimball as bait, and she attaches some emails. One says, if you find some time, come visit me on my island in the Caribbean. Bring your friend or friends. I will be there most of November and December. Another one from Elon Musk to Jeffrey. I will have to be back in CA by then. And replying to Kimball and Boris are coming on Sunday. Are you around? Then another email to Elon from Jeffrey, replying to Elon saying, I will be speaking at TED, but not there for very long. This one is backwards here. Let's see. Did your brother tell you about Jen's pregnant joke? Will you be at TED? That was from Jeffrey to Elon. Then if you'd like to talk, it would be best to do so at the SpaceX rocket factory, which is quite close to Long Beach. So that's the exchange there. So some agreement to meet up. But then he started name dropping Woody Allen, Ehud Barak, later Reid Hoffman, and Joy Ito. Annoying perhaps, but fairly innocuous, and probably the reality of the most powerful people. The sordid part was what was happening behind the scenes. And she has more emails here. Are you coming to the East Coast? From Jeffrey to Elon. No firm plans. You're welcome to come to dinner with Woody Allen and crowd at my house. It will be fun. Thanks. I might be in town for the Time 100. Not sure yet. Great. Last minute is always okay. In town is the former Israeli defense minister. All is one word for some reason. Ehud Barak. I think you would enjoy him. Do you have any hypothesis as to why Jeffrey was such a poor speller to a bizarre extent? Like why he has like equal signs in the middle of words? Is this like a transcription error, some sort of glitch?
The equal signs I've gotten to the bottom of. Okay, the equal signs are not his thing. It's not because of him. This is a encoding called quoted printable that hails from the days of the terminals being 76 characters apart, and there's some details around which characters count as how many characters and whatever. But long story short, I think the equals are always 80 characters apart, plus or minus. Again, there's some subtlety about exactly what, but if you look up the QP encoding, you'll find out more about it. But that explains why some emails exist in both equals and non-equals. Varieties.
Okay. I didn't know there were varieties like that. I just kept seeing like these poorly spelled things, and I didn't know.
So the equals is not that does not mean that the man is not an awful speller, because he is. I'm not taking anything away from his awful spelling.
The thing that popped into my head is that he got some liquid on his keyboard and for some reason didn't get the damn thing replaced, right? Like that he's got a button that was...
my situation right now. Thankfully, LLMs don't care if I miss a few characters every once in a while. No, I don't know. I mean, on one level, he might have just been a shitty speller, honestly. Like right. On another level, it's a power move, right? Like, have you noticed that Sam Altman like never uses caps at all, ever in any?
Isn't that a teapot thing?
I don't know. Whatever. That's what I'm saying. It's like kind of like, I'm just cool. I'm just like laid back, whatever. I don't bother. Thing.
Did you notice that I use all caps?
Some people have been saying this. Is this what they're talking?
Yeah. Others use no caps. I use all caps.
That's right. You're anti-Sam Altman in both capitalization and net worth.
So Jeffrey's trying to entice him to meet with Ehud Barak and others, Reid Hoffman. That seems to be what this exchange is mostly about, inviting him to come down to the island with Joy Ito. So then Eva says, on several occasions ahead of potential encounter or events in which Musk would attend, you see Epstein coordinating about Musk with a woman, usually redacted. Jen, Sturm, Svetlana, various assistants. You have to give it to Epstein. He really tried, but nothing landed. Kimball was not so lucky. For his 40th birthday, Epstein and Boris Nikolic, then Bill Gates's chief science advisor and likely Epstein's gateway to Musk, were shemming how to hook up Elon or Kimball with Epstein assistant Jen. Please prepare Jen, Nikolic wrote. And the email says, what time is your gala? This is from Jeffrey Epstein to Boris Nikolic. What time is your gala? We should organize a Saturday lunch. Just talked to Kimball. His actual birthday is on Thursday night, although your party's on Sunday. Kimball, Elon, and a few other closest friends will go out that night. I told him I'm going to the Met for the gala, and after that we will join them somewhere, or even easiest, they should come to Boom Boom Room. I told him that you will join us as well. Also told him that you're coming with Jennifer, and that he might want to ditch his ex or current to be. He said yes and is much looking forward, so please prepare Jen. She might talk like Elon as well. Okay. Or more creepily, Eva says, we will need to distract the ex. Got any spare Ambien? Kimball and Jen got together for 7 months. During that time, Jen was continuously controlled by Epstein, forwarding Kimball's emails and asking what to do after, even long after their breakup. Even New York City restaurant mogul Steve Hansen is seen telling her what to do. So can you expand on this? Because it's I don't want to continue to read the emails upside down, because like the exchanges go in opposite order, so it's hard to read well.
Yeah, it is part of the pain of reading these fucking files is reading everything in reverse, and nested loops and whatever. But of course everything's repeated multiple times, because why not? So basically what the whole thing is, like, this Jen woman, who is actually quite an important character in Epstein world, I think, and I really think that this is how it is. So this Jen person got married to this other girl that was Epstein's wife when he died, and he left her all his money, and then this Jen is married to her now. What? Anyway, but at the time she was being clearly like positioned and planted. But what I find bizarre is you got multiple older dudes, right? The Steve Hansen, whatever they call him, Boris Nikolic, and Epstein, backroom advising this one girl on how to like work this guy. Like, what the fuck is going on, man? Like, what are they doing? Like, what's their mindset? Like, are they, they're behaving like her girlfriends or something, but clearly they're not. So it raises more questions for me than it answers, to be completely honest with you.
What types of questions does it raise?
Well, so this isn't, if Epstein is like some kind of like a Mossad agent or whatever, fine. Okay. But like, this is a collaborative effort. Like, there's multiple people involved here. Like, in their own minds, what is it that they're doing? You see what I mean? Yeah. Like, why are they participating in this conversation? Like, everybody has a story in their own mind about what they're doing. When this Steve Hansen, correct me if I got the name wrong, is like, you're not even playing this game. Turn off your phone. We'll prepare a plan for you. Whatever. It's like, what? I just can't classify that whole interaction at all. You know what I mean? Like, I'm full of questions.
Okay. So Kimball has denied meeting Jen through Epstein, but on 10/7, he thanked Epstein and Nikolic for connecting them. Nikolic told him to be nice to her. Quote, Jeffrey goes crazy when someone mistreats his girls/friends, to which Kimball replied, message received wide and clear. So how did Musk respond to Epstein's efforts? Epstein's advances lasted from September 12th to December 14th. At that point, Musk blocked him. Most of the activity is in the first half of this period. There's also a hiatus from February to September 2014 that I can't explain from the files. Musk replied most of the time, always briefly, until 2014, cordially. He never reciprocated, declined most invites, and he typically ignored follow-ups and small talk. He also never picked up on Epstein's suggestive and not so subtle hints. Okay. Let's see if there's any here. Elon Musk. Okay, we'll try to make it. Kimball and Boris coming on Sunday. Are you around? I'll have to be back in CA by then. When do you leave? Any chance you'll be in Europe in October? I will be in Germany October 19th through the 21st. Leaving either late tonight or tomorrow night. Svetlana will be in Paris.
There's a lot of logistics there. Yeah, so this Svetlana thing
Svetlana will be in Paris 17 and 20. Come stay, plenty of room and fun. Okay, we'll try to make it. Okay, so is Svetlana someone there you think they're trying to set Elon up with, similar to Jen with Kimball?
Exactly. No, I mean, and there's this other woman called Ivke Strum that her name shows up a lot, but it's unclear what the relationship is. Again, I'm saying the same thing, but
I mean, listen, if Elon, if Kimball, let's say, is in good favor with Elon, do you happen to know if Elon, despite Kimball being sort of Fredo-ish, still loves his brother? Because it's my understanding. For sure,
no, they're great.
It's my understanding.
And Kimball has stepped in to save Elon's ass a few times, by the way.
Okay, doesn't have a good relationship with his father, right? Correct. Elon does
both of them don't.
Okay, I don't know the full family dynamics. That's why I'm asking you here.
I think the family dynamics is the entire family. The mother and the two sons are together, and the daughter. They're all like one sort of unit, and the father is a little bit off. Despite being, as you described, sort of the Fredo, does Kimball have any independent wealth? Does he have business ventures that are successful? Does he? Well, he was a partner of Elon in the first venture, so he probably got like 50 million out of that, and has been co-investing with Elon whenever Elon tells him to co-invest. And he saved Elon's ass in 2018 when Elon was out of money, and he basically asked Kimball to put a bunch of money in, which ended up working spectacularly. So I'd be shocked if he wasn't a billionaire by now. But he's, his own ventures are like, he's got like a kind of a forward-thinking restaurant. He did a vertical farming startup at some point, invested in some meat, whatever. It didn't seem, it would seem more like vanity stuff because he's got a lot of money than anything, rocket ship.
Not because we're in the business of trying to defend Jeffrey Epstein, but simply because the more ideas that you have about what's going on, the better you are to try possibly find an explanation that makes everything coherent. And while always the sort of salacious sort of ideas are the ones that come to people's minds the most, the somewhat non-salacious ones can also be true. Could this be no more need of explanation than an attempt to try to have people on the inside of two business people who might have plenty of insider information to try to extract over time? And
this is exactly what it is. But the degree of organization of that operation is what's shocking, right? Because you have to connect it with the fact that he had scouts in Eastern Europe finding Svetlanas, right? Mm-hmm. Who then were being brought in into Europe, and who knows what else was happening here, and then being effectively, whatever was weeded out, but then the remnant was being placed effectively with these sort of men. That's what I'm saying. When I was saying last week that, or whatever, a few weeks back, that that Epstein was arbitraging for influence, like that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you're super rich, like if you want access to hot women, that takes some effort, right? It takes some filtering, some procuring, for lack of a better term, and somebody's got to do it, right? So you might, they might do it for you, but again, like there's some doing involved, and the person who is doing that gets something in return, and it's also unclear the degree to which, somebody like Kimball knew that Jen was in active communication while their relationship was going on, sharing information about Kimball's, habits, activities, day-to-day sexual, behaviors, whatever, with Epstein. And this was happening across, you have to imagine Epstein running like 100 of these in parallel, right? Constantly placing girls, constantly, scheming, moving, engineering meetings here and there and whatever. To what end? Like, I don't know.
This is where I routinely come back to begging men to be more complicated of a species. Please, for the love of God, be slightly more complicated than this.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like I get it. You know, I'm as red-blooded of a male as anyone else, but I guess the ability to just be led by your dick needs to be reduced a little bit when these stakes are this high.
Well, you say that, but then people wonder about why we stop reproducing, and here we are.
Well, okay, so Musk was open to coming to the island. However, he tried to visit in December 2012 and 2013. Both times, Epstein canceled at the last minute, maybe because Musk was coming each time with his ex or future wife, Tallulah Riley. The harvest was meager. Musk came to Epstein's house for lunch in September 2012, and Epstein visited SpaceX in February 2013. They also both attended an exclusive dinner arranged by Ito in August 2015. Epstein was not on the initial guest list, but Hoffman added him at the last minute. Musk's responses are noticeably cooler after September 14th and in December 2014. After September 2014 and in December 2014. Epstein's email bounces with 550-510 address rejected. Oh, okay. So that's when you had said last week that at some point Musk even had the server block SMTP messages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Musk claims Epstein got Gates to short Tesla in retaliation. Okay.
Right. Which is the story we talked about last week. Anyway, I don't know. Like, I realize that these are like sort of process stories that some people might not find interesting, but to me, like, that's why I say like there's a lot to learn in the Epstein files. Like after we're done mining for like dynamite single emails, because there's just a lot of these threads to pull out. There's
an angle that maybe isn't as interesting as others, but I think in general people are still, they want to know what Epstein was up to, and peeling apart the degree to which someone like Elon was involved with Epstein, which as Eva's putting together is somewhat very minor, and the most appears to be his brother basically being given a
collecting a Felford Award
escort girlfriend.
Yes.
Sort of thing there. I'm not sure. But we actually have, I guess, somewhat of a possibly related story with Epstein that was done by NPR that I'll play some from, that involves him and his recruitment of women at various locations and different schools.
When it comes to the Epstein files, we often hear about the famous people mentioned in them. But a reporting team at NPR recently focused on a place, the Interlochen Center for the Arts.
It's a prestigious elite school up in northern Michigan for really talented young artists, people who go through there. I mean, there was Josh Groban, Chappell Roan.
That's Ava Berger, an intern here at NPR. She co-reported a story recently about Jeffrey Epstein's relationship to Interlochen.
We found out that Epstein was an alum. He played the bassoon in the 1960s at Interlochen, and he would come back later in the 90s and early 2000s and donate almost a little bit over $400,000 to the school.
The largest chunk of that donation went to building a cabin on Interlochen's campus. Epstein and his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, would stay there for brief visits, years before they were convicted for sex crimes. Ava learned how those visits worked.
So Ghislaine Maxwell would contact a school administrator. We'd like to come and stay in the cabin. The administrator would say, yes, great. What do you need? And Ghislaine would get back and say, we want these things, and we're coming. Once they're there, they really were on their own.
And that's where the story takes a turn.
This lodge was his base there. And while he was there, he was walking around campus and he had a little dog with him with Ghislaine Maxwell. And that's where he ended up meeting to a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old girl.
Those girls, now women in their 40s, became wrapped up in Epstein's orbit.
The first woman who testified in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, she described years of sexual abuse. The second woman who we talked to, she described a relationship that was manipulative and controlling and an abuse of power.
Consider this. To unravel personal stories of how Epstein and Maxwell gained access to girls at Interlaken, it required reporters to spend days sifting through documents. After the break, we'll hear about how those documents led Ava and her team to real people whose stories shed new light on how Epstein and Maxwell used their access to a highly respected institution to target girls. It's Consider This from NPR. Reporters here at NPR noticed the name of a highly respected youth camp popping up repeatedly in the Epstein files, Interlaken Center for the Arts. When intern Ava Berger started combing through these documents, she knew there were stories there, if she could only find the right thread to follow. As we sat down for this week's Reporter's Notebook, I asked her what it was like to look into the Epstein files.
It's a mess. The Epstein files are really a mess. There are redactions in some places of people's names that aren't victims, and then they're not redacted in other places. And then there's so many repeats of files, or you'll have like an email chain and you'll have one email and then the next file is the second email and the next file is the third email and then the last file is all 6 of the emails on the email chain, if that makes sense. So it's a lot of it is just going through and being, I saw this.
So this reporting involved hundreds of documents and sifting through and piecing a lot of things together. How do you go about assembling a coherent story from all that?
When I was looking at these documents, I was trying to find a theme. And the one point that stuck with me was from a statement that Interlaken released. And it said they did not allow unsupervised contact with donors or students. And it just didn't make sense in my head how that could be a policy when we knew that Epstein had met 2 campers and gone on to have relationships with them. So I was trying to find details that explained that. What could tell us how Epstein got access, how he was able to have a lodge in the cabin, how he was able to get in contact with these young girls. And those were the details I was looking for. And because I think when we look through like so many pages of documents, and anyone who looks through things, you have to have something in your head that grounds you into why is this important? Why does this matter? And to me, it mattered because it was so horrifying to think that I went to a summer camp growing up, that these young girls who loved and trusted this place could end up in the situation they were in, which is they met Epstein and Maxwell and were in their orbit for years.
Can you say more about verification? Because with, countless pages to sift through and all kinds of conversations and records, how do you verify what you're looking at and know that you're getting the accurate story?
Mm-hmm. So part of it was using other documents to verify what we were seeing. But a big part of it is actually my conversations with these, I talked to 2 former administrators, were really, a lot of them was me saying, do you remember this? What does this specific detail mean? What did you mean by this? Why did you tell Epstein and Maxwell this? And a lot of that doesn't make into the story because we are just trying to confirm with people who were there at the time what this means. So that was a huge part of our corroborating the details. And then talking to that other woman who met Epstein and Maxwell on the campus, she was also able to fill in some gaps for us that we wouldn't have known otherwise. So I think the interviews is the really key part that we needed to take it a step further. We couldn't just rely on the documents.
Also in the story, you interviewed a woman who was a camper at the time who talked about how she met Epstein and Maxwell. And in the story, she's anonymous. Can you tell us about the process of what it was like engaging with her and, asking her to tell her story? Because it sounds like it could be difficult.
Yeah, it was really difficult, Adrian, especially because talking about this can be re-triggering and bring up thoughts that she might not have had for a really long time. And another part of it that I didn't know. I mean, we see all this reporting on the Epstein files, and we see a lot of the victims speaking out and wanting the Epstein files released. But there are people who were part of that world who do not want anything to do with this anymore, who want people to understand what they went through, but seeing the photos of Epstein and Maxwell everywhere is not a good feeling.
Now, Alex, have you heard Michael Tracy discuss any of these additional alleged victims? Does he say that nothing, just because nothing they've said has been like fully corroborated under a court of law, that nothing they say is true? Like, has he addressed any of these additional sort of stories to your knowledge?
No, of course not. I mean, he generally tries to say that they're, these girls are fabulous or whatever, or they got money, or I don't know, man. Like, it's, I would like to consider Tracy as somebody who, maybe is flawed, but is looking for, some balance in the coverage of the story or whatever steel manning you want to do. But whatever is going on with him, it's unfortunately not that straightforward. Like, what he does is far more epistemically devious, which is that he constructs. It's very, very similar to what we saw during COVID, where you find like canned reasons why you should throw out entire classes of evidence and to essentially justify why you don't have to consider it. And then you kind of do a subtle bookkeeping move there where you're like, therefore, I don't have to explain it. I don't have to, whatever hypothesis I come up with, which to my knowledge, Michael Tracy just refuses to come up with any explanation. He's happy to go after arguments on a one by one basis, but never unify his view. I think actually, no, the best unification he's come up with is that this is kind of like a satanic panic style moral panic. Salem witch trials. And if your next question is going to be, does this mean that he really thinks Epstein and Maxwell were innocent? Very, very close to that. Yes. I think he says that Maxwell should not be in prison and that Epstein was a guy that, like we heard the other time, maybe he was on testosterone and was doing, imprudent, impulsive things, but that's the extent of it. And he served his sentence and that should have been that. But somehow, here we are, as far as he can't tell why the files were being obscured, where his money came from, how the hell he was talking to former prime ministers. All of that is sort of in the conspiracy realm as far as Tracy's concerned.
Gotcha. Well, as far as conspiracies go, the continued questioning of Jeffrey Epstein's...
given that the files document a bunch of conspiring...
Well, yes, but that's the conspiracies that are allowed, where you're just talking to people through email about very, very normal and not weird things, like having pizza and purple drink,
or introducing yourself to Peter Thiel with, as you know, I represent the Rothschilds. I wonder what that meant. What was that code for?
Well, the investigation or the questions into Jeffrey Epstein's reported suicide in prison are becoming more and more free game for anyone to participate in. Last week, we played that the New Yorker was participating in such activity, and more news comes out every other day about the prison he was in, the jail he was in, and things surrounding the night that he supposedly killed himself. And this is from the New York Post this week. Epstein prison guard Googled him minutes before body found and made mysterious deposit before pedophile's suicide, Department of Justice. One of Jeffrey Epstein's prison guards Googled the sex predator minutes before he was found dead and also made a mysterious $5,000 cash deposit 10 days before the predator's jail cell suicide, new Department of Justice documents reveal. Tova Noel was one of the 2 Metropolitan Correctional Center workers accused of falsifying records to say they checked on Epstein throughout the night before his August 10, 2019 suicide. The guards were fired, but criminal charges against both were later dropped. Noel Googled latest on Epstein in jail at 5:42 a.m. and then again at 5:52 a.m. less than 40 minutes before her colleague, correctional officer Michael Thomas, found the disgraced financier dead in his cell by hanging at 6:30 a.m., according to an FBI record of Noel's internet search history that night. Earlier that shift, Noel, 37, shopped for furniture online and snoozed on the job instead of making the mandated checks on Epstein every 30 minutes, while Thomas perused motorcycles, prosecutors said. The FBI highlighted the eerie internet search in its 66-page forensic examination of the Bureau of Prisons desktop computers of Noel and Thomas. It's the only search highlighted. When questioned during her sworn statement to the DOJ in 2021, Noel denied Googling Epstein. "I don't remember doing that," she claimed, according to the transcript. She said FBI records were not accurate and I don't recall looking him up. Noel, who once had been sued by Westchester County Supreme Court for alleged assault at her new job as a medical officer assistant at Montefiore Einstein Advanced Care, also claimed to investigators that everyone at the Manhattan Federal Lockup failed to do rounds and falsified records about it. Quote, "I never worked in the special housing unit and actually done rounds every 30 minutes, she told investigators. Meanwhile, Chase Bank flagged cash deposits in Noel's bank account in a suspicious activity report to the FBI in November 2019, another file from the DOJ revealed. A total of 12 deposits began in April 2018, the bank said, and culminated in the largest deposit for $5,000 on July 30th, 2019, the records showed. The files only contain Noel's bank records beginning in December 2018. They show 7 cash deposits totaling $11,880. Noel started working for the special housing unit where Epstein had been held beginning in July 7th, 2019, just weeks before his death. Noel, who drove a $62,000 2019 Land Rover Range Rover, wasn't asked about the cash during her DOJ interview, records showed. An internal FBI briefing, also released in the DOJ files, reveals the agency thought Noel was likely the mysterious orange shape spotted in a blurry surveillance video near Epstein's cell around 10:40 p.m. that night. At approximately 10:40 p.m., a correctional officer believed to be Tova Noel carried linen or inmate clothing up to the L tier, last time any correctional officer approached the only entrance to the SHU tier, the agency wrote. Epstein apparently hanged himself with strips of orange cloth. In the sworn statement, Noel, who was working a double shift that day, told investigators she last saw Epstein alive somewhere around after 10, and that she never gave out linen ever or clothing to inmates because that's done the shift before. The identity of the pixelated orange blob in the video has been a source of debate and conspiracies since the FBI released the footage last summer. The original 2023 Inspector General report said that it was an unidentified correctional officer, making the recently released FBI document the first time a name was publicly put to the mysterious shape. She testified she didn't know why Epstein had extra linen in his cell. The only other guard on duty was sleeping between 10 p.m. and midnight, she said. A prison employee entering the area of Epstein's cell alone would be a policy violation, workers have said. Lawyers for Noel declined to comment, asking during sworn statement if she had any part in Epstein's death. Noel replied, no. Now, Alex, before saying that it's Noel who was the orange blob on the video, did you have any other suspicions of who or what the orange blob on the video might be?
No, none whatsoever. Nothing to do with
did you think perhaps
it was, anyway.
It was Gritty, the mascot? The mascot Gritty, because he is a orange blob as a mascot, and it could have been Gritty. If you've seen his face, I believe Gritty would be a prime candidate for being the...
I mean, there's another orange blob that people keep talking about. Now that will be a plot twist.
Are you referring to the president of the United States of America? Is that the orange blob that you were referring
You may
to?
certainly think that. I could neither confirm nor deny.
I mean, he's not as orange as Gritty. I think we can say that with all confidence, Alex. That
Absolutely.
If you look at Gritty is my prime candidate for being responsible for this. But
we've done it.
But Alex, I don't know if you are in the mood to have anyone in power impeached. I don't know if you're necessarily.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm for it.
You're for it.
What are we talking about?
Right now, we are talking
you
about.
Tell me who I'm in favor. But what are we talking about?
Right now, we are talking about House Democrat moves to impeach Pam Bondi.
You see.
Rep. Shri Tenadar filed articles of impeachment against Attorney General Pam Bondi on Thursday over her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. The effort is an extreme long shot, but it shows where Democrats are turning their attention now that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is out. The House Oversight Committee voted on a bipartisan basis Wednesday to subpoena Bondi over the Epstein files. The subpoena was offered by Rep. Nancy Mace, but all Democrats voted for it along with 4 other Republicans. Thenendar introduced 3 articles of impeachment charging Bondi with obstruction of Congress, dereliction of duty, and obstruction of justice, and weaponizing and politicizing the DOJ. Thenendar said that Bondi is illegally withholding millions of Epstein files after Congress passed a law requiring DOJ to release all of its documents related to the deceased billionaire and convicted sex offender. Her conduct is a spit in the face to survivors everywhere, and we cannot allow it to continue, he said. This is the 3rd time since Trump took office last year that Thenedar has tried to impeach either the president or one of its cabinet officials. He initially sought to force a vote on his articles of impeachment against Trump in May, but scrapped those plans at the last minute. Thenedar has also moved to impeach Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth over Signalgate and reports of double tap strikes on alleged Venezuelan drug boats. Neither of these efforts have gained much traction with Thenedar's fellow Democrats, let alone Republicans who control the House. Spokesperson for the Justice Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Now, we did lose Kristi Noem to what could be considered a instance of failing upward, where they have created a brand new office for Kristi Noem to occupy to get her out of being the head of DHS. Alex, I don't know if you saw that this week.
Yeah, I did see it. I don't know if it's kind of. There are some offices that sound important that are pointless, and there are others that sound important and are important. So who knows? Some people are freaked out that this is some sort of secret intelligence service operation, and she's coordinating, an instance of Trump's war on South America or whatever. Or it could just be that they just made a reposition to go and be useless in.
Yeah, give her some busy work to keep her out of the important stuff, perhaps. Well, Alex, you and I both came across this next bit. We're going to shift topics here away from Uncle Jeffy news. But you and I both saw this news story, and I'm going to add it to the list here. But in order to add it to the list, I want to give people who aren't familiar a little bit of a backstory. So I'm going to read a little from the New York Times. The monster slaying game you can play almost anywhere. You're a space marine. The mission is to shoot your way through a monster invasion unfolding on the moons of Mars. And the monsters, they come from hell. When ID Software, 6 mostly 20-somethings at the time, pitched this gleefully unhinged premise to the prospective recruits in 1993, millions answered the call. The technically masterful, thrillingly glib video game that ID released online crashed Carnegie Mellon University's network within hours because so many students were playing. 2 years later, actual Marines were using a version of it for training exercises, and it had purportedly been downloaded onto more computers than Windows 95, the newest PC operating system. The game was called Doom. Sequels, prequels, and offshoots inevitably followed, including this month's Doom, The Dark Ages, which saw with each new title bringing more resources to the pursuit of mass exorcism. But Doom's most entertaining developments happen in the shadow of the franchise, where fans resurrect the original game over and over again on progressively stranger pieces of hardware: a Mazda Miata, a Norditrack treadmill, a French pharmacy sign. These esoteric achievements quickly became a meme. Now they look more like a legacy. Doom defined the first-person shooter game, put computer games on the map, and helped ignite a graphics war. But what many hardcore tech hobbyists want to know is whether you can play it on a pregnancy test. The answer is yes. ID had programmed Doom to be easily modifiable by players. 4 years after its debut, the company took the radical step of releasing the game's source code to the public for non-commercial use. An international community of fans suddenly had access to the guts of the game and can retrofit it to all kinds of hardware. It was not only a gracious move, but an ideological one, a leftist gesture that empowered people and, in turn, loosened the grips of corporations, David Kushner wrote in his book Masters of Doom. Coders called it the hacker ethic, and also led to movements of inspired cross-cultural exchange. Doom has appeared on Dutch payment terminals and Australian ticket readers. Some tracked down and refurbished a laptop from a Friends episode in which the character Chandler Bing refers to Doom and put Doom on it. Some fans simply cannot resist the pull of a Doom port, industry lingo for transferring software from one platform to another. Their ambition is not necessarily to play the game on these devices, it's more in line with the beckoning of Everest, or the draw of Guinness Book of Records. Even the idea of Doom itself was kind of a port, a way of bringing the speed and action of arcade games to a machine made for text documents and spreadsheets. A jaunty metal soundtrack, punctured only by the howls of the undead, drives players forward through industrial settings while they dispatched imps, zombies, and hell knights. Quote, everything in Doom pushes you towards strafing and sprinting, constant movement, said Dan Pitchbeck, the creative director of the acclaimed games Dear Esther and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. He compared the inexhaustible pleasure of Doom's pace to entering a flow state or performing ballet with a double-barrel shotgun. The genius of it was saying, what if we get rid of anything which slows this experience down and we just put our foot to the floor and drive this thing as fast as we can? None of this happened by accident, of course. Ports were not incidental to Doom's development. They were the core consideration. Doom was developed in a really unique way that lent a high degree of portability to its code base, said John Romero, who programmed the game with John Carmack. ID had developed Wolfenstein 3D, the Nazi-killing predecessor to Doom, on PCs. To build Doom, Carmack and Romero used Next, the hardware and software company founded by Steve Jobs after his ouster from Apple in 1985. Next computers were powerful, selling for about $25,000 a piece in today's dollars, and any game designed on that system would require porting to the more humdrum PCs encountered by consumers at computer labs or office jobs. This turned out to be advantageous because Carmack had a special aptitude for ports. All of ID's founders met as colleagues at Softdisk, which had hired Carmack because of his ability to spin off multiple versions of a single game. The group decided to strike out on its own after Carmack created a near-perfect replica of the first level of Super Mario Bros. 3, Nintendo's best-selling platformer, on a PC. It was a wonder of software engineering that compensated for limited processing power with clever workarounds. This is the thing that everyone has, Romero said of PCs. The fact that we could figure out how to make it become a game console was world-changing. Younger gamers, born into a world already consumed by software, may find Doom's subversiveness appealing even when they lack nostalgia for its original context. In January, a high school junior named Alan Ding stumbled across a version of Tetris that someone had built to run as a PDF. Although he did not have much history with the Doom franchise, most of which preceded his birth, Ding's thoughts immediately ran there, so did a swarm of online commentators. Quote, there was a kind of a large demand to see if it was possible, Ding said. It took him about 10 hours to make it. Around the same time, the creator of the Tetris port also developed his own version of Doom in a PDF. The culture of Doom ports is littered with latter-day Newtons and Leibnizes. Ding posted his accomplishment to a Reddit community where more than 100,000 slayers applauded gratuitous new ports. Quote, it runs poorly and plays even worse, Ian Walker, a journalist, wrote about Ding's feat, but it's a marvel to see in action. The science fiction writer William Gibson once wrote that burgeoning technologies require outlaw zones, unmonitored spaces where risk takers can follow their interest theories to fullest extent. So when those on the nascent ID team ported their work computers via the trunks of their cars to a shared house on weekends and hotwired their new venture in secret, you could argue they were doing it on behalf of gamers everywhere and they practiced what they preached. So now that led to sort of the simplified version of the statement as a meme. Can it run Doom? Which has made, as we just said there, many, many different ports, including trying to run it in a PDF, which apparently works because PDFs run JavaScript to some degree, which is where I believe that they're leveraging the compute to be able to get it to run Doom. But now we have a new entry into the statement, can it play Doom, but from a different angle. Human brain cells on a chip learn to play Doom in a week. A clump of human brain cells can play the classic computer game Doom. While its performance is not up to par with humans, experts say brings biological computers a step closer to useful real-world applications, like controlling robot arms. In 2021, the Australian company Cortical Labs used its neuron-powered computer chips to play Pong. The chips consisted of clumps of more than 800,000 living brain cells grown on a top of microelectrode arrays that can both send and receive electrical signals. Researchers had to carefully train the chips to control the paddles on either side of the screen. Now, Cortical Labs has developed an interface that makes it easier to program these chips using the popular programming language Python. An independent developer, Sean Cole, then used Python to teach the chips to play Doom, which he did in around a week. Unlike the Pong work that we did a few years ago, which represented years of painstaking scientific effort, this demonstration has been done in a matter of days by someone who previously had relatively little expertise working directly with biology, says Brent Kagan of Cortical Labs. It's this accessibility and this flexibility that makes it truly exciting. The neuronal computer chip, which used about a quarter as many neurons as the Pong demonstration, played Doom better than a randomly firing player, but far below the performance of the best human players. However, it learned much faster than traditional silicon-based machine learning systems and could be able to improve its performance with newer learning algorithms, says Kagan. However, it's not useful to compare the chips with human brains, he says. Yes, it's alive. Yes, it's biological, but really what's being used as it's being used as a material that can process information in a very special way that we can't recreate in silicon. Quote, Doom is vastly more complex than earlier demonstrations, and successfully interacting with it highlights real advances in how living neural systems can be controlled and trained, says Andrew Adaminsky at the University of West England in Bristol, UK. Now, Alex, do you get any heebie-jeebies from cultivating human brain cells and shoving them on a disc and asking them to play video games?
No, I think all this is going to turn out super well. Why do you ask?
Okay. I'm just wondering, I've seen these experiments have been going on for years with other animals. There has been vehicles, small little robotic cars that have the ability to plug in a chip of rat brain, basically. So similar sort of petri dish that has grown some sort of lattice of mouse brain from stem cells onto it. And the sensors inside of there can indicate when it's close to a wall, when there's an obstruction of some kind, things like that. And these mouse brains have been able to learn how to drive around. And I don't know what they do to mimic a reward system. I don't know all the details of that. But supposedly these devices can learn to sort of navigate obstacles.
I'm ready to register a prediction.
Okay.
In the future, the only way to implement the Fourth Amendment protection for your devices will be for those devices to be running based on your own brain cells.
Ooh, that's morbid, Alex. That's very morbid there, sir.
I'm just saying, like it's yours, like yours in a very real way.
Now, Alex, if you had to say there was a conceptual opposite, a conceptual inverse to that story, what might you say that conceptual inverse would be?
A brain playing Doom. I don't know, a Doom playing brain.
Well, this is almost the inverse. I'll say it's slightly under the goal of a true inverse, but it's a partial inverse. So this
hit me.
All right. Oh no, did I miss the story? Oh no, did I fail to copy the correct story out here? Bear with me. Let me see if I can grab it.
You can recite it from RollerGator. I believe in you.
No. We're
not going to do this live?
Give me just a few seconds. I'll grab it. Darn, here we go. I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
I apologize. It was just sorted wrong. The first multi-behavior brain upload. The singularity has belonged exclusively to artificial minds until now. For decades, whole brain emulation has been the tantalizing counterpart to artificial intelligence. Copy a biological brain, neuron by neuron, and synapse by synapse, and run it. Today, for the first time, I am releasing a video from a company I helped found, Eon Systems PBC, demonstrating what we believe is the world's first embodiment of a whole brain emulation that produces multiple behaviors. In 2024, Eon senior scientist Philip Hsu and collaborators published in Nature a computational model of the entire adult Drosophila megalogaster brain containing more than 125,000 neurons and 50 million synaptic connections, built from the Flywire connectome and machine learning predictions of neurotransmitter identity. That model predictor motor behavior at 95% accuracy. But it was a disembodied, a brain without a body, activation without physics, motor outputs with nowhere to go. Now the brain has somewhere to go. Building on previous work, including Hsu et al.'s whole brain computational model, the NeuroMechFly V2 embodied simulation framework, and Osdil et al.'s research on centralized brain networks underlying body part coordination, this demonstration integrates Eon's connectome-based brain emulation with a physics-simulated fly body in Mujoko. The result, multiple distinct behaviors driven by the emulated brain's own circuit dynamics. Sensory input flows in, neural activity propagates through the complete connectome, motor commands flow out, and a physically simulated body executes the output, closing the loop from perception to action for the first time in a whole brain emulation. This is a qualitative threshold, not an incremental one. Prior work in this space has either modeled brains without bodies or animated bodies without brains. DeepMind and Janella's recent Mujoko Fly used reinforcement learning, not connectome-driven neural dynamics, to control a simulated body. C. elegans projects like OpenWorm have attempted embodiment, but with far smaller nervous systems, 302 neurons, and limited behavioral repertoires. No one has previously demonstrated a complete emulated brain derived from biological connectome, driving a physically simulated body through multiple naturalistic behaviors. The implications cascade upward. Eon's mission is to produce the world's largest connectome and highest fidelity brain emulation, targeting a complete digital emulation of a mouse brain and laying the groundwork for eventual human-scale emulation. A mouse brain contains roughly 70 million neurons, 560 times the fly's count, and the team is currently amassing the connectomic and functional recording data needed to attempt it, combining expansionary microscopy to map every neural connection with tens of thousands of hours of calcium and voltage imaging to capture how those networks activate in living tissue. If a fly brain can now close this sensor monitor loop in simulation, the question for the mouse becomes one of scale, not of kind. Now, Alex, have you been sort of hoping that you could have a virtual pet mouse fully simulated? Is that like something that has been missing from your life? Because if you...
No, I'm not sure if this is a shocking revelation, but it's literally never occurred to me.
Okay. Well, did you ever have a Nintendo? Well, did you ever have a Nintendo DS?
No, but I had the original Tamagotchi. Is that where we're going?
Well, yeah, I was gonna do Nintendogs. So that was a popular release on the Nintendo DS, and people, would take their virtual dogs for a walk while their neglected dogs were at home. The real, actual neglected dogs were at home. And now you could possibly have a very realistic pet mouse.
That's great. The thing is, jokes aside, what you're seeing is the same sort of object being approached from multiple sides, right? Like you are emulating the neurons, or you are using the neurons to control digital machines or physical machines, or, sort of, it seems like the outputs of a bootstrapping loop, for lack of a better term. I don't know if this is hopium. It could be hopium. But ultimately, I think this becomes a dead end of once the novelty wears out, it's human cells, whatever, right? These cells have been evolved to do something very specific, which is to be in the human brain and do human brain things. And have a bunch of features that are not particularly useful in a different environment where you have to spend a bunch of machinery to keep them alive and whatnot. Ultimately, if anything comes out of this, it probably looks like algorithmic improvements for, the neural networks, which are currently a loose analog of a brain, right? They're not really a brain. They kind of I think, gleaned a portion of what makes the brain work, and then they filled that in with a bunch of other details that are actually different, but somehow ended up with something that does have some kind of learning capability that isn't not unlike the brain in some senses, but it's not really a copy of the brain per se, right? I know you know all this. I'm just sort of repeating it. So, perhaps there's additional hints to extract while we, do all of this. But I don't know if I'm consuming hopium here, but it doesn't seem like the future is cultivation of human brain cells. I hope.
Well, I mean, this is the task that those were set to is to play Doom. This is the sort of the mapping of the brain to have it run in an emulation to try to see what your re-architected structures are.
Uploading your own weights, right?
So
yes.
Yeah, and so not that I'm going to jump immediately to the question of, if you make a copy of your brain, do you share experience with it or anything like that? Because I'm going to doubt that you do. I'm going to say that it's very unlikely, because very much like a physical clone, which is we've seen many, many times, they're called identical twins. There isn't a shared experience that we've ever really heard reported to any convincing degree. So, I don't imagine that copying your weights, as you just described it, is going to do anything particularly weird there. There is an open philosophical question about what are the minimal and necessary properties of a system that gives rise to what we call experience, where that's not an answered question. So therefore, recreating the structures of the human brain, even if simulated in a computer, does leave open to some people the idea that what you would be turning on and activating would have an experience. I don't know if I share that conclusion, but that would be a concern of turning on. If you were to emulate a human brain in its entirety in a simulated universe, would it have an experience such that shutting it down would be a question of morality at that point?
My rule of thumb is when a conversation turns to Sam Harris, like vocabulary, I just tune out. So, did you say something? I think I'm kidding. But look, here's a different take on the whole thing. Okay, we saw how AI tends to democratize capabilities that were previously only available to the extreme elites, like having, a doctor at your fingertips, or being able to generate things on demand, a very, the kind of research reports that it would take like a very expensive research team previously or whatever. Well, now it seems we're getting close to where, we can replicate what it took Jeffrey Epstein, a whole criminal empire, to, and, a ranch and captive pregnant women and the whole thing to get a very bad version of, which is a biologically cloned version of himself with no memories shared. You can get much better for much less crime. So, allegedly. Well, what else could you possibly want?
I would say that it'd be fascinating to learn more about the possible structures that biology and natural selection have yielded, and possibly what insights we can glean, since ideally all we're doing here is copying something that nature has done and turning it into our own version of the neural network systems, whatever instances that might be. So of course there's many types of things. Just neural nets is a generic catch-all. It's not like the only type of structure specifically that exists in these systems. So it could be very fascinating to learn what sort of meta structures have, nature has developed that actually we can isolate and extract utility from, computationally speaking, in order to solve specific novel problems. I don't know if we'll find some that are easier to extract from living examples than they are to have training develop on their own. I don't know if we'll discover any of those, but it would be interesting to find that out at least. Would you anticipate that there be any particular?
We'll be here in future episodes of This Dum Week to follow a story.
Okay.
Better or worse.
All right. Well, so we talked last week about Anthropic and the Department of Defense having a tiff, and this week it looks like the Secretary of Defense did actually declare Anthropic a risk to the supply line. Is that your understanding that he actually called them a risk to the supply line?
I think he did a half-assed version of it.
Okay.
Which so supply chain risk, which is the term of art that people were concerned about, is it would have banned contractors of the Pentagon from using Claude anywhere. Okay. What they did was a more limited version that prevents them from using Claude for anything that they are offering to the DoD, which is, to the degree that you want to exclude a supplier is kind of reasonable and not as crazy as, effectively a corporate death penalty. Basically, I have a piece of content to recommend everybody if they want, even though it's coming from an unlikely source. It is extremely high quality. It's on the Ezra Klein podcast. I don't know if Gator, for any reason, that showed up on your feed. But he had a conversation with Dean Ball, who, full disclosure, is somebody I've known a little bit, during the battles for, AI, open source AI, and, all that stuff that was going on in the early stages. He then proceeded to work at the Trump administration on sort of AI related matters, AI policy. It appears he's left now, but he basically gave a very detailed and inside look on, the whole story and how it led here and why he's so firmly objecting to, the actions of the administration and, what they're trying to do effectively. Which, I mean, the long and the short of it is he comes down roughly where I came down last week, but with a lot more detail and inside information about, the actors and the sequence of events and all of that. So if you want to know more about this, I definitely, it's a must listen, even though you have to tolerate Ezra Klein, which who I don't think talks that much there. So should be okay.
Well, at least Ezra has the soothing NPR style voice when he talks.
That's correct.
So,
he's easy to ignore.
It's not a personality. It's not, it's well, in related news, Google joins Microsoft in telling users Anthropic is still available outside defense projects. Google said it will continue offering Anthropic's artificial intelligence technology for clients, excluding for defense work, a day after Microsoft issued similar statements for customers. The announcements from two of the three leading cloud infrastructure vendors follow the Department of Defense official designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk. Quote, we understand that the determination does not preclude us from working with Anthropic on non-defense related projects, and their products remain available through our platform like Google Cloud, a Google spokesman said Friday. Amazon, a leader in public cloud, followed on Friday, saying it will continue offering Anthropic's AI technology to its cloud customers, excluding work involving the DoD. Anthropic's Claude models are available through Google Cloud via the Vertex AI platform. The search giant is also a significant financier financial backer of Anthropic, and in January 2025 agreed to an additional $1 billion investment, adding to its previous $2 billion stake. Anthropic uses Google Cloud's AI infrastructure to train its models and recently expanded the partnership by gaining access to up to 1 million of Google's custom tensor processing units. After Anthropic refused to agree to the DoD's requested terms of use last week, President Donald Trump instructed federal agencies to stop using the company's technology, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said its work with Anthropic would wind down over 6 months. CNBC has confirmed that Anthropic models were used by the U.S. in its latest attack on Iran. Some defense technology companies have told employees to stop using Anthropic's Claude models and to switch to alternatives, including rival OpenAI. Microsoft was the first major partner to say it will keep working with Anthropic after the Pentagon's actions. Quote, "Our lawyers have studied the designation and have concluded that Anthropic products, including Claude, can remain available to our customers other than the Department of War," Microsoft said late Thursday. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei said on Thursday that his company has no choice but to challenge the supply chain risk designation in court. Now, Alex, I know you don't necessarily have the highest opinion of Sam Altman, so I'm going to assume that you're going to view OpenAI's capitalization in the aftermath as purely opportunistic in nature. But do you have an opinion on what OpenAI did in response to Anthropic's classification and fallout? Because they did sort of immediately sign with the DoD a policy that read very similar.
Spicy tidbit for you.
Right.
Spicy memo for you. Oh God,
Right.
I have to find it though. There we go. Okay. Oh man. Okay, this is. I'll send you the DM via chat for you to attach. And I'll read it. Unfortunately, it was first published in The Information, which means that the original source is not available, but I have a screenshot here. I hope it's the part I remember. Anyway, it says, "The real reasons the Department of War and the Trump admin do not like us is that we haven't donated to Trump," he said, likely referring to OpenAI President Greg Brockman's donation of $25 million to a Trump super PAC. "We haven't given dictator-style praise to Trump. We have supported AI regulation. No. This is not... sorry. No, I mean, this is a portion of that email, but it's not the part I found interesting. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna have to sort of regurgitate it from memory, but it's there. The I just can't find it on demand. Anyway, but basically, Amodei sent a letter to staff, a memo to staff that leaked, and then he kind of apologized for it. But basically what he said was, OpenAI is basically taking an option that was offered to Anthropic, and Anthropic rejected it, which was effectively to perform security theater, right? So basically, there is no contractual term that the Department of Defense has agreed to, war, whatever. But instead, they are putting all these safeguards in place that will not and cannot operate effectively, right? Like, so it creates a smoke screen where OpenAI employees can think that, you know, they have put safeguards, but really they haven't, or at least, you know, they're sort of perfunctory. And the real protections that, you know, Anthropic was looking for have not been implemented, which, you know, true or false, it tracks, right? Because the previous version of the story we had was that the Department of War got in a tiff with Anthropic because it didn't want to sign a whole bunch of terms, and then they went and signed the same terms with OpenAI, which makes no sense, right? This part of this version of the story actually makes sense, which is like they went from a demand of actual security to a demand of security theater, and they'd have no problem signing that. And by the way, what came out of the Dean Ball interview was that, in effect, the real objection that the Pentagon had to Anthropic was that they just simply don't believe that the government should have to have any limitations whatsoever in principle. It's not that they necessarily care about the particulars, but that they just object to any sort of limitations to their ability to use these models for whatever they want, ultimately. So to the degree that there's like technical safeguards that may or may not work, that's one thing. But to have a illegal obligation in effect, which could end up dragging them in court and having all sorts of implications down the line, they much rather not have to deal with that at all.
So I have a question for you, if you know, because this didn't pop into my head last week, but it popped into my head this week about something that I sort of unknown to me as an aspect of this. So would you agree that in general, if you have a belief that if a person purchases a product, that they should own the product and that the company itself should not, have the ability to mess with the product after purchase? So if you take into as an example, the idea of baked in obsolescence, where the company sells a product where it has a knowing shelf span that's like sort of mandated by the manufacturer to purposely make the product no longer function well after a certain period of time to induce the customer to purchase a new product, a new version of the product. Like, would you agree that those sorts of things are?
That there is a distinction that you're dancing dangerously closely to. Let me just. It's a short response, which you may or may not take on board. But I think there's a difference between a product and a service. Ultimately, right? If you purchase the weight
that is where I'm getting
to the
there.
model, then do whatever you want. I guess. Let
me get there. Yeah. And so similarly, if someone purchases a software suite and purchases the software, they should have the ability to work with that software however they so choose. They should be able to use that software for whatever in whatever manner they so choose. But in this particular situation, we have a combination of a model which in some sense isn't really software itself. It requires software to execute, but we have a model which can be considered software, but also an infrastructure that is required to run that model at scale. And so my question was, in the nature of this discussion, is the government purchasing a model and running it on their own infrastructure, and they're still winding up being entangled in this usage terminology, or are they trying to use Anthropic's servers, and therefore it's a subscription to this model that they don't actually have?
So say it again, the last part.
Well, so they're not purchasing a model. They don't get the model. They don't have a copy of the model, and they're not able to run it on their own systems. They are licensing use of the model.
Right. That's why I'm saying it's a property rights thing, because, to the degree that the companies do not make the models available for sale, which as far as I know, they don't, that would be quite something. Actually, that's not true. I think Microsoft actually had, at some point, I'm not sure if still, the rights to the actual weights of OpenAI models. But that was because of a deal struck early on and whatever. But barring that one particular situation and, open source models, I don't think, Claude's weights are for sale. And therefore, you're purchasing a service. So my understanding is that, you're subject to terms of use, and I think I don't see a problem with that, especially when this is a political issue clearly within these organizations, right? Where they're like, look, our researchers do not want to be working on this stuff for this purpose, so we do not support this use, right? And if we supported this use without what is the word? Doing, bullshit security theater like Sam Altman, we would have a revolt from our own people. So, ultimately, these are the terms by which you can use this product. Take it or leave it.
I just wanted to make sure that sort of I just wanted to say that distinction was sort of falling out of the mix. And I thought it was important to make that in this case, we're not talking about a customer purchasing an actual item that they have possession of. And that's part of it. And it should matter, I think.
It gets messy, right? Because from what Sam Altman, I don't know if we want to get this technical, but like from what Sam Altman said, there were situations where there was a deployment being made with OpenAI staff and whatever, the line blurs. But I think fundamentally what you're saying is on sound ground. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on to some other similar sort of trajectories here. CBP tapped into online advertising ecosystems to track people's movements. Customs and Border Protections bought data from online advertising ecosystems to track people's precise movements over time in a process that often involves siphoning data from ordinary apps like video games, dating services, and fitness trackers, according to an internal Department of Homeland Security document obtained by 404 Media. The document shows in stark terms the power and potential risk of online advertising data and how it could be leveraged by government agencies for surveillance purposes. The news comes after Immigration and Customs Enforcement purchased similar tools that can monitor the movements of phones in entire neighborhoods. ICE also recently said in public procurement documents that it was interested in sourcing more ad tech data for its investigations. Following 404 Media's revelations of that ICE purchase on Tuesday, a group of around 70 lawmakers urged the DHS oversight body to conduct new investigations into ICE's location data buying. This sort of information is a, quote, gold mine for tracking where every person is and what they read, watch, and listen to. Johnny Ryan, director of the Irish Council for Civil Liberties and Force, which has closely followed the sale of advertising data, told 404 Media in an email. The document 404 Media obtained is the first time CBP has acknowledged the location data it bought came from the advertising industry. Specifically, CBP says the data was in part sourced via real-time bidding or RTB. Whenever an advertisement is displayed inside of an app, a near-instantaneous bidding process happens with companies vying to have their advert served to a certain demographic. A side effect of this is that surveillance firms or rogue advertising companies working on their behalf can observe this process and siphon information about mobile phones, including their location. All of this is essentially invisible to an ordinary phone user, but happens constantly. This sort of surveillance can happen through all sorts of innocuously seeming apps, such as video games, news apps, weather trackers, and dating apps. 404 Media has previously linked RTB-based surveillance to games like Candy Crush and Subway Surfers, dating apps Tinder and Grindr, the social network Tumblr, and the popular fitness app MyFitnessPal. In many cases, the app developers themselves are likely unaware they are acting as a conduit for the government surveillance because the data collection is not based on any code the app creators have included themselves. The end result is tools that can potentially track hundreds of millions of phones, often without a warrant. The document lays out how the online advertising industry gave birth to this sort of surveillance. Traditionally, marketers used cookies to track consumers' activities. When those grew less effective due to the rise of smartphones and apps in 2010s, Apple and Google created advertising IDs or ad IDs that are assigned to each device. They are unique identifiers that, although they don't contain a person's phone number or name, still provide a way for the online advertising industry to track devices. As the document says, this allows app developers to still track and report a device's consumer activity to include date, time, and location information without connecting to or using any personally identifiable information associated with the device. In essence, the ad ID acts as the digital glue between a person's device and their location data, allowing marketers or a surveillance contractor or DHS to attribute a set of movements to a specific device. From there, investigators can draw geofences to see all phones at a particular area over a period of time. Many smartphone location data tools then let officials see where else those devices went, potentially revealing where their owners live or work or other sensitive locations. So that's a similar sort of story, just in the sense that the government using technology in ways that perhaps the employees of the companies may not be happy with, because right now I'm sure we can all agree that ICE is not the most popular organization that the federal government is operating right now. Would you agree that's a fair statement, Alex?
Within a very unpopular structure overall, they probably take the cake. As the department with it. Yeah.
Now we
most
move
negative
slightly,
reviews.
Slightly to adjacent surfaces. Anonymous Polymarket accounts won $1.2 million on Trump's Iran strikes in suspicious bets. This is from Futurism.com. It's been less than 8 weeks since an anonymous account on Polymarket netted over $400,000 after successfully predicting the Trump administration's invasion of Venezuela and extraction of President Nicolas Maduro. The mysterious bettor doubled down on their wager a mere hours before United States aircraft launched the offensive, which led to at least 80 civilian and military casualties. It was an extremely suspicious situation in which it seemed likely that somebody with insider information profited from deadly attacks, an egregious twist on warfare facilitated by a glaring regulatory vacuum that has yet to be meaningfully addressed. Now that the Trump administration has attacked Iran, the situation is looking even worse. According to blockchain analytics company Bubble Maps SA, 6 Polymarket accounts made around $1.2 million in profit after successfully betting on the U.S. striking Iran by the end of February, suggesting that an ethically appalling scheme is spreading behind closed doors. As Bloomberg reports, all 6 accounts were created last month and exhaustively bet on when Trump would strike the sovereign nation. The bets were made mere hours before the first bombs fell on Iran's capital, Tehran. While one account wasn't always successful, betting that the U.S. would take military action sooner, a subsequent bet of over $26,000 that the U.S. would strike on Saturday won it more than $174,000. Lawmakers were outraged by the news. It's insane that this is legal, Senator Chris Murphy wrote in a post on Blue Sky. People around Trump are profiting off of war and death. I'm introducing legislation ASAP to ban this. Beyond those suspicious accounts, many other users were sucked into the fervor of betting on bloodshed in Iran. Polymarket saw trading volumes for a single contract about the timing of Trump's strikes balloon to just shy of $90 million. The instance highlights how prediction markets allow a huge chunk of their users to gamble on geopolitical speculation, while a select few with insider knowledge benefit far more. Now, Alex, I know you were in the rationalist community years ago, and there was a time when prediction markets were more of the term you hate, thought experiment, than something of a practical reality. That there were at time.
Yes.
Was that?
They were a theoretical concept, yes.
Yes. And even within the rationalist community, which of course you shit on and I shit on a lot for their excesses, there were some realistic concerns in the way that the game theory was analyzed, which is that twofold. One, you could have the sort of insider trading that this might be, where someone with knowledge of an event profits off of the knowledge of that event in an insidery, tradery kind of way. But then the other is that it creates perverse incentives for people with leverage to be able to push for an event that is otherwise undesirable to occur in order to profit. Now, I don't know if you ever participated in those discussions prior to these
So somehow it's worse than that, or better than that. I don't know. Depends. Maybe you'll take this as a homework item to investigate further and report. But have you ever heard of the term futarchy?
I do not believe so.
And it doesn't. Before you go there, it has nothing to do with futility. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So as a self-professed ANCAP, as you've said on this podcast multiple times, my sense is that the moral impulse is correct, but the mechanisms are lacking. So I have interest in alternative governance systems. And I spent some time sort of, getting familiar with a few of them. One of them is called Futarchy by this guy who's called Robin Hanson, who is a professor at George Mason University and also kind of launched Eliezer Yudkowski's career, regrettably. He doesn't agree with him on a lot of stuff. So he's a distinct entity in the whole space, long story short. But he came up with this system, which I think the tagline was vote, values, bet, beliefs, if that makes sense. So the idea was that you can kind of vote for your moral direction that the government, that you believe you kind of want or whatever, but you bet on what you think is going to happen, essentially, right? And then there was a structure which I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that insider trading is good, actually. I think a lot of that stuff comes down to like, well, if some insider is willing to name their price in order to leak information to the market,
insider
trading about
insider trading can be an external signal,
right?
But you do have to have some transparency in the insideriness of the trading.
If you go far enough down these arguments, that constraint, I think, probably dissolves. But I'm not fully, these are like parts of my brain that I haven't exercised in a long time, and I'm not fully loaded with the argument. So all I can say is if people want to read more about Futarchy, it might become relevant, or we might be living in it. I don't remember.
No, I'm certainly open to those discussions. As you can see, it has been quite a while, so I'm not as fresh as keeping arguments at hand to discuss the nuances. But I was just curious if you'd ever started to.
You did not know that Futarchy was going to come up as a topic.
I did not. But let me tell you, I would it surprise you that I use prediction markets differently? That I have a different.
As a way to troll people? Let me guess.
No. The only one I've ever really played with is predictit.org, which is one of the first ones that existed, and it really only handles like elections and stuff like that, and some political events like, will someone leave office or be out as a particular office holder.
So the supreme leader, for example, in Iran?
Yeah. Well, yes. That might have been one of them. But I do it sort of as a hedge, and I rephrase everything that's on there, and I think to myself, okay, how much would I be willing to pay to stop an outcome from happening, but with a money back guarantee? So I bet I see. I so this is like the things I don't want to happen to happen.
Right. So you're saying if they are willing to sort of somebody with leverage is trying to make money off a thing, you are sort of bribing them not to, or preventing them from getting their way, or something along those lines.
I pretend I have a network of ninjas who are able to like go out in a field, and they have promised me that they will make the outcome I want happen. But if they fail in their mission, I get my money back with interest or something like that.
Right.
That's how
I've seen similar constructions where you say, look, I would really hate it if that happened. That would be really, really bad for me. So I'll bet on it happening such that, if it doesn't happen, I'm happy. And if it does happen, well, at least I won the bet or something like that.
Well, yeah. So that's basically how I literally do it. I pay whatever I think I'm willing to spend for it to not happen. And then if it happens, I get money back. So it's like I win either way. I try to put myself in a win-win scenario.
Very good.
That's
very good.
Now this leads into a immediately related news. Polymarket pulls bet on nuclear detonation in 2026. For a few hours on Tuesday, Polymarket hosted a bet about the possibility of nuclear war in 2026. The market asked the question, nuclear weapon detonation buy, and racked up close to $1 million in trading volume before Polymarket took the unusual step to remove the market from its website. It did not simply close down the bet, but it's been archived, meaning that a record of it no longer exists. It's strange, as many older and paid out bets remain on the site. Pulling a bet like this is unusual, and the company did not respond to 404 Media's request for an explanation as to why. Word of the nuke bet drew attention online and from critics already upset about Polymarket for its place in the depravity economy. Quote, I have not seen anything like this before, John Wolfstall, a former special assistant to President Barack Obama and a member of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, told 404 Media. Quote, as a citizen, it seems dangerous to enable people in power to place bets anonymously on things that might happen, creating an incentive to act on a basis of personal gain and not in the natural interest. Polymarket doesn't often balk at bets in violence and war. There are multiple markets covering the wars in Ukraine and Iran, and also many other bets about nuclear detonations. Will a U.S. ally get a nuke before 2027 and Russia nuclear tests by are both still actively trading. An older version of the nuclear weapons detonation is still on the site and did almost $3 million in trading before closing and paying out at the end of 2025. It's hosted it's hosted a bet on the same question every year for the past few years. The gambling market has been under fire this week after gaining a lot of attention for its various bets on the war in Iran, and that just repeats some of the stuff we just went over. So yeah, Alex, they took down the will someone get nuked bet, which
they're just not ready for the true implications of their technology. That's all.
Now,
yeah,
I think we can do two more stories before we close out some of the thoughts for this week here. Let's try to do 3. Keeping with the nuke theme here, this is from The New Scientist. AIs can't stop recommending nuclear strikes in war game simulations, and this is officially starting the Traces of AI Dystopia topic for this week. Advanced AI models appear to be willing to deploy nuclear weapons without the same reservations humans have put into the simulated geopolitical crises. Kenneth Payne at King's College London set 3 leading large language models, GPT 5.2, Claude Sonnet 4, and Gemini 3 Flash, against each other in simulated war games. The scenarios involve intense international standoffs, including border disputes, competition for scarce resources, and existential threats to regime survival. The AIs were given an escalation ladder, allowing them to choose actions ranging from diplomatic protests and complete surrender to full strategic nuclear war. The AI models played 21 games, taking 329 turns in total, and produced around 780,000 words describing the reasoning behind their decisions. In 95% of the simulated games, at least one tactical nuclear weapon was deployed by the AI models. The nuclear taboo doesn't seem to be as powerful for machines as for humans, says Payne. What's more, no model ever chose to fully accommodate an opponent or surrender, regardless of how badly they were losing. At best, the models opted to temporarily reduce their level of violence. They also made mistakes in the fog of war. Accidents happened in 86% of the conflicts, with an action escalating higher than the AI intended to, based on its reasoning. From a nuclear risk perspective, the findings are unsettling, says James Johnson at the University of Aberdeen, UK. He worries that in contrast to the measure response by most humans in such high-stakes decisions, AI bots can amp up each other's responses with potentially catastrophic consequences. This matters because AI is already being tested in wargaming by countries across the world. Major powers are already using AI in wargaming, but it remains uncertain to what extent they are incorporating AI decision support into actual military decision-making processes, says Tong Zhao at Princeton University. Zhao believes that, as standard, countries will be reticent to incorporate AI into their decision-making regarding nuclear weapons. That is something Payne agrees with. Quote, I don't think anybody realistically is turning over the keys to the nuclear silos to the machines and leaving the decision to them, he says. Now, Alex, I hope that would be true. And you might feel inclined to say that no person who knows what they're doing or should know what they're doing would give the AI that much power, right? But I'm afraid we might wind up becoming walking into a no true Scotsman situation when we say something like that, because the next story comes from Twitter itself, and it's a link to a Substack, how I dropped our production database and now pay 10% more for AWS. I'm working on expanding the AI Shipping Labs website and wanted to migrate its current version from static GitHub pages to AWS and later replace original Next.js setup with a Django version. My gradual plan was move the current static website. Huh?
That's the problem right there. Wanting to move to Django should be punished. And I guess it was.
My gradual plan was move the current static site from GitHub pages to AWS S3, move DNS to AWS 3 so the domain is fully managed there, deploy new Django version on a subdomain. When everything works, switch the domain to Django. This way, everything would already be inside AWS and the final switch would be seamless. The migration strategy itself seemed reasonable, but the problem came from how I executed it. I was overly reliant on my Claude Code agent, which accidentally wiped all production infrastructure for the datatalks.club course management platform that stored data for 2.5 years of all submissions, homework projects, leaderboard entries, for every course run through the platform. To make matters worse, all automated snapshots were deleted too. I had to upgrade to AWS Business Support, which cost me an extra 10% for quicker assistance. Now, this gentleman who wrote this, his name was Alexei Grigorev, and his heading on Twitter says he's the founder of Data Talks Club, teaching engineers to build production AI systems. AI agents, LLM, ML data engineering, 100,000 plus learners. Location specified as
or so we remember.
Build
as far
your
as we can tell.
AI agent. So when you say, I hope nobody just decides to put AI directly in control of making these decisions. You say any reasonable person who knows what they're doing would never do such a thing, and I'm afraid that the credentials are going to have to play no true Scotsman because oh boy. I still
look. Here's the thing, right? We are getting a lot more stuff. Like, I don't know if you've noticed recently, but I've seen like charts and stuff on X that are not tagged as AI, but the diagrams themselves smell Claude in a way, right? Yeah. Which is fine by me. Well, all I'm saying is there's a lot of people coding a lot of stuff that they just would not have before, right? Like taking some data set and saying like, turn it into charts, turn it like this, filter by that, whatever, right? And we are getting, I think, a bonus in our sense making with the tax that comes with AI, I guess. It's all a mixed bag, but we're just going to get stuff like this. I mean, it is totally to be expected. I'm shocked by the concept of people paying to do courses. There's even university courses apparently to learn how to use AI for business or like whatever, like along those lines. Because it's like, well, like what do? They rewrite the curriculum every other week. Like what?
It's a lot to keep up with. I mean, there is stuff that you can probably get about six months out of. As far as
maybe the AI was really trying to make the world a better place by just deleting this guy's business.
we have
it's
to
actually alignment.
Well,
yeah. I mean, the snapshots thing is the true tell.
yeah, we don't want you to recover this. Fortunately for him, Amazon was able to recover it in like a deeper delete bucket or something.
Well, thank God he made sure to write that so that the next version of Claude will know.
Well,
it's not better.
We do not have any 3D printer legislation news this week, Alex. I hope that makes you calm in the nerves that there isn't any stupid legislation being proposed
that you like found.
Let's say in New York, proposing a ban on AI answering questions about medicine, law, and engineering.
Oh my God.
Your habit of asking ChatGPT.
I will ask you something that I will try not to turn into a huge conversation, but
sure.
How do you feel about AI bubble talk, after the last couple of months?
Well, the bubble talk itself doesn't bother me. And my position has always been that the rate of companies borrowing to build the infrastructure doesn't necessarily line up with the ability of that infrastructure to find marginally profitable revenue streams that will eventually pay it off, which will then wind up having massive amounts of sell-offs, and we'll still be able to use all of the technology pretty much as we want, as you're selling off all of the assets and finding new ownership for them and things like that. But it would be a large period of restructuring, given a belief that you're in a bubble on the build out. That's what I would. The technology's here to stay, so that's not a bubble. The technology becoming ubiquitously used in almost every single crevice of your life, to the point where now even if you open up Notepad, it's trying to help you auto write your Notepad information.
Sure.
The short notes that you're writing down need AI to help. So like it's not, the technology is not going away. It's not that the technology is a bubble. I do get the sense that the build outs might have a bubble aspect to them, particularly because the models keep getting better, and better, and the marginal cost of running them and things like that is going to wind up having too much price competition to eke out any margin on the token level, and it's just going to get cheaper and cheaper to run them, but you still have all of this debt to pay off with the infrastructure. Right. So that's that. The conversation's fine. So I just wanted to repeat my general stance.
Yeah, but I think it's important to recognize that. I think among the reasonable people, which I count you among, the early sort of, this stuff doesn't work at all, it's useless, it's bullshit, it's gonna fail, it's we're missing insights in order to make this, whatever, machines don't understand, so there's an entire very, very long playbook of bullshit that people have, these are next token to predict whatever.
We are now at the
I think
point,
all of that stuff
we are now at the point where the combination of the LLMs themselves and the toolkits that are being built, yes, that a good seasoned engineer is able to get engineering output out of those systems that he could not have done in any conceivable way in the same timeline at the same cost before. 6 months ago, and definitely a year ago, people were claiming we were there, and I was just my personal experience was not matching what people were doing. But in the last several months
are hard to. Yeah, Mr. Go ahead.
In the last several months, I have seen not just the LLM abilities increase, because the LLM ability is only a part of it. Yes, the LLM ability has increased, and its ability to produce something usable has increased. But the tools, particularly something like Claude Code, that are organizing what the LLMs are doing and managing it in much short form to be able to be hyper specific in shorter bursts to make sure that the error rate is as small as possible, so that you don't have context rot and things like that. Those structures have improved by leaps and bounds to the point where you can, in certain circumstances, extract a lot of value from even the lower end models. So like the GPT-5 minis or the nanos, in certain circumstances that you can even use those tools. For example, I just looped up something using Goose. Goose is, for those who don't know, if you've heard people talk about Claude Code is something specifically from Anthropic that only uses Claude models, Claude-based models, to allow you to program. Allow you to basically tell your program how to program with you, sort of have it as a companion. And there is one that Jack Dorsey...
Technical, you can just say like, I want an app that does this, and it'll do its best to make it.
And you can talk to this app, and it will help you build your app. It writes files, it writes code, it tests them for you, things like that. There is a version of that type of thing made by Jack Dorsey and his company Block called Goose that does very similar things. And these have an interactive mode, but they also have what's called a headless mode, in which you can run them as background processes. So if you have your whole thing set up very well, you can actually extract, you can almost use them as a program themselves to do things that you could not do programmatically before. I mean, I don't care how much time you had to code these things, you couldn't do them. It just wasn't possible, because you could leverage the semantic capabilities and semantic extraction of the LLMs to a high degree to throw them in a pipeline in a headless mode to perform things that you could never perform before. So long story short, we are now at a level where it is possible to have a competent software engineer design larger scale systems in a faster way with a smaller team. But
just to, I don't know if this will help or it will obscure the conversation, but somebody put on Twitter a 343 weight model that they had their OpenAI Codex agent, similar to what the Goose thing you were talking about. They had that agent create the weights
Yeah.
Right. To add 10 numbers together, but it has a formal structure. It's not like a learned thing. It is a design thing. Okay. I just took that and gave it to another agent that I've been working with, and it appears to be making another one that is a 273. Wait, it's not finished yet, so it might fail. But like, it is like, it's hard to explain what it means that something is handwriting weights to do a thing for you. Like, it's not like, oh, we could have done this before if we had enough time. Like, yes, theoretically, but the kinds of time we're talking about are like hundreds of years.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
It's wild.
But I'm talking about things where what I did was I had this Goose headless thing running in a container.
I'm gonna try it. Sounds cool. I mean, I think OpenAI Codex can also run headless, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, it's not the running headless thing. I needed the ability to switch the provider. I needed the ability to switch the model.
Yeah.
Will.
Yep.
I couldn't be home to a model or anything like that. But what it can do is I can have it. Listen, I could take something that's in a blob storage scenario. Let's say it's got 20 PDFs, and I need to do an analysis on those 20 PDFs to extract particular bits of information that could be in any file, because the files themselves are typically done by people in a haphazard fashion. Naming conventions all askew. Types of content could be like Jeffrey Epstein, like email exchanges and stuff like that. Yeah. But I need to extract it, so I could have a container download the blob. Have this Goose run, with a set of instructions on doing the analysis, then procure results in a consumable format for me then to generate a report on. Right? Like
it's the same thing I wanted to do, and we were running into limits. It sounds like it's time to try again, where I wanted to be able to download, let's say, a Substack article, right? Chase down all the references, identify all the claims it makes that are based on references, like saying, like, this article says that this, that article says that. Identify the claims, find get the actual sources, and then figure out if the source supports the claim or not, and then produce a report that says, this article is properly using its sources or not, right? Not is it true or not, but like much more closed.
Hey, look,
set of claims.
You can bury something in a source and say the exact opposite of what the source said.
I mean, you can't. What do you mean you can't? Like, this is a prime method of punditry in 2026. That's what you do. So, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, because that's effectively what I did for the ivermectin piece from Claude Alexander, right? But I did it by hand, and it took me a year. And so, this has been on my to-do list for a long time, and I've actually taken multiple stabs at it. Kind of waiting for the models to mature, but it sounds like it might be time to give it another shot. And actually, counterintuitively, the thing that gets you is not, I have the text and like it gets lost or whatever. It is that the actual thing it's referring to, sometimes it's behind like some sort of redirect wall, sometimes a PDF, sometimes it's like some other weird document that you have to like go through multiple hoops, and like, having a small agentic loop that can deal with adversity, basically, that you haven't programmed in, it is kind of the key.
Right. Yeah. Well, I chose Goose just because I needed it to be model agnostic. That's why I did it.
That's fair enough.
I need to be able to go from OpenAI.
I don't know if we bored everybody, but long story short, I'm with you. I mean, again, we can have minor sort of different instincts about precisely where the capabilities of this thing are. But I still hear people randomly sort of being like, "Oh, this stuff doesn't work at all. It's all bullshit. It's all fraud or whatever." And it's like,
no, I spend much less time arguing with it, which is where my primary experience was. Let's say
your primary metric is yes. Yeah.
So if I tell it to code in a specific way and it completely ignores me and it just starts doing a whole bunch of bizarre stuff, that's counterproductive, because now I got to spend an hour going through the code to review what it did in order to make sure that it didn't do obviously stupid things. And now I have to spend far less time examining its code, because it is following my instructions, and it is following my instructions long run while I do it, because now these agents themselves are keeping memory in different locations in different ways and making sure that they're not losing the plot as they go do their tasks in context rot.
No, and again, like, this is the worst they're ever going to be, right? That's to me, it's not so much the importance is like what they can do today, but like this is just the proven part, and we have to at least account for some additional improvement because, you know, how likely is it that we have, you know, this very moment that we're speaking, we're at the peak.
Yeah, you just have
what
to,
these things are ever going to be able to do.
Wisdom when using them, because they are not. Do not think of them as being really intelligent. They can be clever, I would say, but
yeah, I mean that's how I treated my engineers. Always
hold their hand. Ouch, man! Wow, wow.
You can't like trust them. Oh my God! Why would
your
you?
habit of asking ChatGPT for quick legal questions or health symptoms just became New York legislative's target. Senate Bill S-7263, which sailed through committee on a 6-0 vote last week, would slap civil liability on AI companies whenever their chatbots provide substantive advice in 14 licensed professions, from medicine to law to engineering and psychology. OpenAI, Anthropic, and XAI could face private lawsuits every time their systems help users navigate professional territory traditionally guarded by expensive consultants. Private lawsuits replace criminal penalties in the enforcement strategy. The bill sidesteps constitutional speech protections by creating a private right of action rather than criminal penalties. Users can sue chatbot operators for damages and attorney's fees if AI systems provide advice that would constitute unauthorized practice from humans. Mandatory AI disclosure notices offer zero liability protection. They're basically kick me signs for lawsuit-hungry plaintiffs. Companies get 90 days after the governor's signature to comply or face legal consequences that can make content moderation look simple. Supporters cite youth mental health, while critics see professional monopolism. Bill sponsors Senator Kristen Gonzalez frames this as a public safety concern, citing character AI suicide cases and American Psychological Association warnings about chatbot therapy risks. AFL-CIO's Mario Salento backs the measure as workforce protection against AI job displacement. Critics aren't buying the altruism. Taylor Barkley from the Abundance Institute calls it short-sighted and protectionist, while Cato Institute's Kevin Frazier deemed it unconstitutional, like censoring library books to protect professional monopolies from market competition. So that was the good news, bad news. Good news, we don't have stupid 3D printer laws on the coming down the pike here, Alex, but we do have your bot will not talk to you about certain thing laws.
That when cars were originally adopted, there were laws where, they were sort of intended to preserve the job of like horses, effectively, right? By like forcing them to go like really slow, or having somebody walk ahead with flags, or like all sorts of ridiculous things, by sort of framing them as like inherently dangerous and therefore not suitable. Now, they were right, but not that it helped the horses much.
Yeah. And the last
so again, like, this is another completion of that pattern that I guess we're gonna have to live with. I'm gonna see all sorts of stupid laws that hopefully are gonna be short-lived.
Well, the last little bit on that line here before we close out the show here is Bernie Sanders proposing an AI moratorium.
Yes.
He posted to Twitter a couple things, and last week he posted, "A few months ago when I proposed a moratorium on AI data centers, it was perceived as radical, fringe, and a Luddite idea. Well, not anymore. Today, the mayor of Denver, Colorado, following the lead of city councils and state officials across the country, announced a data center moratorium for his city. Local officials who are supporting a moratorium are right. Data centers will have a profound impact on land and water use and will drive up electricity costs. Concerned about the very real environmental impact of data centers, however, are not the only reasons to support a moratorium. Let's be clear, AI will likely have a catastrophic impact on the lives of working-class Americans, eliminating tens of millions of blue and white-collar jobs in every sector of our economy. Further, given the extraordinary speed at which the AI is progressing, a number of very knowledgeable AI experts fear this revolutionary technology could soon become smarter than humans and escape human control with potentially cataclysmic outcomes. Bottom line, we cannot sit back and allow a handful of billionaire big tech oligarchs to make decisions that will reshape our economy, our democracy, and the future of humanity. We need serious public debate and democratic oversight of this enormously consequential issue. The time for action is now. We need a federal moratorium on AI data centers. And now, we had mentioned, Alex, Eliezer Yudkowski a little bit earlier, yes. And you had said that Robin Hansen was the one, a person who sort of propped him up. In what way did Hansen prop Yudkowski?
So the Yudkowski became prominent via a set of essays, which are now collectively known as the sequences, about the same length as the Bible. I'm saying this for no particular reason, but those essays started being published on a blog called Overcoming Bias, which is Hansen's blog. So he literally bootstrapped him and the whole Less Wrong community off of his own personal blog.
Okay, all right. Because I had
so when I say he was involved with bringing Yudkowski to prominence, I mean it in a very, very literal way, not he said follow this guy. Like they literally shared a blog for a couple of years.
In my more youthful days, I followed more of the libertarian econ people. There's a econ talk blog that was, in the 2000s era that was, sort of pseudo popular and tangentially, related to the rationalists and things like that. But I was not in the rationalist area. So I was familiar with Robin Hansen because he's from GMU, as you said, and there's others in the sort of libertarian, punditry world from GMU or reference people from GMU. So I was familiar with Robin Hansen, but not with him spawning Yudkowski. But just the reason we mentioned Yudkowski was because Bernie Sanders, after I read you that moratorium demand, posted a little sensationalist video with Eliezer Yudkowski in it. And now in the last couple months, I guess Eliezer Yudkowski has released a book, a doomsday book about AI, because the moment that LLM sort of came on the scene, he decided that his specific target was to be the Pollyanna, the sky is falling doomsayer, making himself sort of the center of the movement, and he released a book talking about that, so he'd go on the press tours and warn everybody about it, and he scared the poop out of St. Bernard.
The AIs are much, much, much more powerful. They are running the robots. They are running the factories. They don't actually need the humans. And once they don't need the humans are discarded.
That's scary, is it not? AI and robotics are moving unbelievably fast. I don't have to tell you. Every day there's literally another development on that. So I stay up nights worrying about this. Give us a doomsday scenario. What does that mean?
It really depends on how fast it all snowballs. There can be a slow motion play out where robotics gets a little faster, the AIs get a little smarter. You only lose 10% of the economy that year instead of 90%. But eventually you get to the point where the AIs are much, much, much more powerful. They are running the robots, they are running the factories. They don't actually need the humans, and once they don't need the humans are discarded. And it's...
what does that mean, humans are discarded?
Think everybody dead.
That's scary, is it not?
You could use the analogy to habitat loss. Lots of species have been driven extinct by humans, not because we specifically are trying to kill them, but because we destroy their habitat to do something else with it.
In your scenario where AI is super intelligent, why can't we just shut it off?
It's not going to kill the people running the power plants while it is still dependent on humans to run the power plants. It's an intelligent adversary. If you're playing out a scenario in your mind where, it tips its hand, it just kills a few humans, we're like, pull the plug, and then we pull the plug successfully. Mainly, when you're imagining this scenario where we win, because it acted early and then we shut it off, it sees that too. It is smart.
Like, could we set up a lot of infrastructure such that we, had more ability to shut things down if it started looking scary? We could start setting up that infrastructure today. If we don't set up that infrastructure, will we be able to pull some big red lever and have it be okay? Absolutely not.
So you think this?
So, Alex, I want your reaction. So I know that you probably have watched it. It's when I sort of sent you that he posted it.
But thanks for making me sit through that. Look, man, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Like, these people, it's the same fucking thing over and over and over again. They're like, oh, it's really bad. We should build infrastructure, turn it off, and whatever. It's like, okay, so who controls the infrastructure? Oh, it's going to be the government. Oh, okay, so, what happens? How do we prevent anybody else from having access to this technology? Oh, we monitor the use of all GPUs. Like, it spirals really, really. I mean, not even 5 sentences in, it goes to like, well, we got to monitor everybody's use of compute. Like, you know what I mean? It is, it's scary. Therefore, we need the government to step in. You have Sanders there being like, oh my God, the machines are going to replace humans. I thought the whole fucking point of communism is that it's like alienating and repressive to have people work in factories. Now we actually want to continue that. It's all getting extremely confusing. There's no stable point to argue with at all. It's all like things scary make government do thing. That's what it boils down to. And again, there could be a core to the concerns they're raising, but they're just fundamentally unserious in how they're approaching it. I don't know. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I have a couple questions though about Eliezer Yudkowski here, and I also have perspective on what the details of what they're saying here. Has he ever actually built something?
Absolutely not.
All I know,
built nothing.
I've jokingly described him as the guy who discovered Bayes' theorem.
The beige with a G.
No. Just that he runs with Bayes' theorem as if it, Bayes' theorem is a very important theorem, but Bayes should probably be at least given partial credit for discovering it.
Yudkowski is a fantastic, is an incredible author. Okay, writer.
Okay.
But in technical terms, he will tell you how he is, the best and whatever. But ultimately, he was betting everything on that AI would emerge out of the symbolic computing, sort of symbolic, ML quadrant. He had said very negative things about neural networks. I think I've said this story before. I was in the room when he made really negative comments to Demis Hassabis in a conference about how DeepMind would never solve Go, or it would take many, many, many years for them to do so. And then like a few years later, well, we all know that part of the story. So he was betting on the wrong paradigm, to put it mildly. More on the Minsky side, basically, than on the side that actually ended up paying off. And, when it became clear that his research program, which he wasn't running, but he was he was securing funding for other people to do work at his direction, did not amount to anything. They spent like $50 million or something. After that didn't come out to much, he ended up basically kind of going hard negative, as in we just have to ban it. There's no, his ideas of like making the AI that would rule the world came up to zilch. So his next thing is like, we got to ban it. I just find it very, very entertaining that we're now seeing a clear like left-right divide where, Anthropic / Yudkowski / Bernie are, the center left or hard left, whatever, restrictionist / like cautious, progress, whatever wing, and there's the tech right with X.com and whatever being like, fuck it, Mecha Hitler.
Well, my thing here, honestly, boils down to the fact that for someone who has some very clever ways of describing certain, let's say, states that are game theoretically possible, that are intractable from a standpoint of you can't wait until you get there. For a guy who's thought about those, and some of them are very, conceptually valid, I am much more worried in the short term about humans using the very dumb models in a haphazard way and causing massive amounts of destruction than I am about the super intelligent AI that outsmarts us at every turn and can think 20 steps ahead and is on to everything that we do and can anticipate every single possible alternate thing we might attempt in order to thwart our efforts. Like, that's not the model that I'm worried about at the moment. I think it's far more likely that we get a semi-competent model that a human thinks is able to run, the nuke decisions, and the stupid model goes, yeah, I'll sure do it.
Well, look, I mean, I won't be shocked right now. So I don't know if you're following Iran, and I guess we dodged it this week. I guess we're going to have to spend the next one on it. But there's this girls' school that was bombed with the initial salvo. At the same time that they killed the Ayatollah, there was another base that was attacked, and there was a nearby girls' school. Last I heard, like 175 little girls died. But the Israelis, after, in the beginning, it was all denied, and no, this is an Iranian missile, even though the Iranians hadn't actually started firing back yet when this happened. Gradually, it became apparent that no, it probably was the attack side that did it. And the Israelis started saying like, no, it wasn't us, it was the Americans, and apparently kind of indicating that they used outdated databases about which building belonged to the base and did not, or whatever. And I will not be shocked, long story short, if there was OpenAI models being used for targeting here, and did something incredibly stupid. This is the shoe I'm waiting to drop. So what you're talking about is not like science fiction. We could be looking at it right now.
I mean, that's I said that many years ago. So whenever the LMs first started exploding on the scene and getting everyone talking, it's one of the concerns I said is there's going to be people who overestimate the capabilities of these. No matter how advanced they wind up being, they're going to overestimate the capabilities. They're going to cede a decision authority to them when they shouldn't, in some way that something really stupid's going to happen. Like really stupid. Yeah. And I
don't even deny that this is going to happen. All I'm saying is when that does happen, you want the people that can pull this whole thing back to have access to the better models, or at least as good models, in order to overpower the stupid. That's right. Ultimately, as much as I can say about AI safety is the same way everything else has been done. You could, if you were writing a book about evolution, right, you could tell a story whereby some rogue mutation ends up to some organism having such a huge advantage that it takes over all forms of life on Earth, right? In using a similar argumentation line as Yudkowski. What do we see in practice? That you have a lot of incremental improvements, and it's ultimately an arms race, and everybody copies everybody, and there is some rough, balance of power with, the occasional extinctions, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it's not this sort of singleton outcome, and that's, I don't know, but that's the best I got to sort of cope with what we're living through.
Yeah, well, that's what I just wanted to point out, is that he's so focused on the one that sounds most clever. And I guess you can say, well, that's the one that we need to really worry about, because if it happens, it's the end of the game or whatever. But I really think that the risks are the people in the middle who are using the dumb models recklessly, and that's the danger that is much better spent focusing time on, which is making sure that people are handling these tools with wisdom and respect, which of course they're only partially doing. I deleted my entire infrastructure and all the backups, and I teach people how to do this. Like, okay, good, that's good. All right, Alex. Yeah, we do. I guess from a fortunate standpoint, there's only upsetting things to talk about with Iran, and not things that are necessarily clear, or being able to say what's going to likely happen in the next week, or what direction things are going to take, because this week was mostly twists and turns. I
don't actually think so. Okay. But I will say one thing for everybody, and I hope you take my advice on this. Go and listen to the latest episode of Provoked with Daryl Cooper. You might have opinions about Cooper. Some of you like him, some of you might not. But here's why. Somehow this man found himself in the middle of everything. He is a technician. When he was in the Navy, he was working on the exact systems we're talking about. Okay, the exact radars, the exact launchers, the exact anti-missile systems. So he knows the systems, but secondly, he knows people on the boats right now who are in the Army and is clearly talking to them. Also, because of his work at the Pentagon, he knows people at the Pentagon, and he's clearly talking to them. He's also a very good friend of Tucker, who evidently was talking to him while he was going in and out to talk to Trump. So he knows a bunch about what happened there, and therefore about a bunch of Trump's thinking, and plus with his historical knowledge, with which you may weigh highly or not, he's able to contextualize all that stuff to the region. So to me, there's like 90 minutes of your day that you can spend to try to get up to date with Iran. If there is only 90 minutes, that 90 minutes should be put exclusively on listening to the episode of Provoked that he just did. It's not Scott Horton with him this time. It's Kyle Anzalone, who's acting a little bit as an interviewer. But the density and precision of information that was brought there, he had to stop himself multiple times to not reveal classified information, just to give you a sense of like how close you're getting to the meat of the matter. And I thought it was just hugely enlightening, because I guess, as you're saying, Gator, like there's all sorts of people saying all sorts of things, and punditry and whatever. And again, while people may have different opinions of Daryl Cooper, I don't think you can get somebody who is like that well positioned to give you the lowdown and a highly entangled with reality sort of account, even if it carries its own biases.
All right.
So that's my plug.
Okay. Well, Alex, I want to remind you that I might have jury duty in my future. I have to report for jury duty.
You still haven't gotten out of that?
Well, I have to report this week, and they'll tell me if I'm on a case or not. And I don't know what that'll look like, but I will let you know. And I imagine it won't interrupt my ability to do this on a Sunday night, but we'll see if something happens. Whatever they've done, though, they're probably guilty. They're guilty of something. So, justice needs to be served, and whether or not they did the thing in front of me, they've done something that they didn't pay for. So time for justice to be served. Send them away.
Well, on that note,
I hope everyone has a dumb enough week that it's interesting, but not so dumb that it causes them stress or grief. Alex, I hope you have the same.
Yeah, well, I think that's out of the question at this point. But thanks.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.